obviously, like when you discover the people that he's helping in the tanks and stuff, depending on what like path you've chosen, his reaction to that is very interesting. Speaks a lot to his character.
I love it.
He's one of my favorite NPCs for the entire planet for
Yeah.
sure. Partly
Yep.
because of how it's
Yeah.
packaged. Like, yes, he's involved with the Rakghoul serum overall, so he's got more of like of a relevance to a larger piece of the story in the world. But also, just like you said, you find that door, open it up, and then how that interaction goes kind of helps inform the kind of character that both you and he is. It's you feel connected to this guy very immediately just from that alone, and that's a very clever kind of snapshot way of kind of getting you to care about these people. And also because he's relatively easy to find, it kind of encourages you again to kind of look around every corner and check every nook and cranny, just to find little beats like this.
Yeah. But I love the history. I love just like the society and just the way like everything is explained about people being banished and the sort of just colony that they've made as a result. I mean, again, it's all the world building. I can't praise it enough.
The dumbest thing, I don't even know if it counts as a quest, but there's like you can run into like a spoiled brat who like thinks you're a waiter and like
Yes, yeah. There's no quest there.
how
It's
did you
just a
handle that?
reaction to you as you talk. The whole of that cantina is nothing but aristocratic snobs. I mean, my God,
But how did you handle that? What
clientele here.
happened?
I just politely said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not a waiter here," and I think he gave me another follow up. As so another waiter then turns up to give her a drink or something. A drink.
She
Yeah,
didn't
it's just
attack you?
very mild. It didn't attack me, no.
Did
Oh
you?
yeah, like if you insult her, she'll run off and she'll be like, "Daddy," and she like leaves.
Okay.
Like she runs away, and then like the next time you leave the cantina, she's hired a couple of goons to attack
Oh
you
my
outside. So,
God.
yeah, yeah,
That's
Again,
hilarious. No, I was just polite, so I guess it pays to be polite
Yeah.
in these situations. Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, and welcome back to Fanalysis Star Wars. I'm Callan, this is Matt,
Hey everybody, welcome.
and this is Evan.
Greetings.
Oh, and may the 4th be with you, I suppose, if we've managed to get this up as planned. Very special video today in the sense that people have been waiting for it for a long time. We are talking, as you've seen from the thumbnail, about KOTOR, specifically Taris, the kind of tutorial introduction of the game. Bit of a intro into why we're covering this now, besides obviously the fact that it's May the 4th, and we figured we want to do a pretty big one for this one this year.
And it's a bit of an obscure game, so you might not have the full context.
Yeah, exactly. Well, first of all, yeah, not many people have played this one, so we figured we want to cover it as much as we can to kind of really bring it to light, because it's kind of one of those quiet cult classics nobody really has heard about. So that's for starters useful. But also, I was on a bit of an RPG kick lately. I got very much into the mood, and that's what I've been waiting for, on top of the fact that we're in a Star Wars mood, of course, to kind of properly dive back into this game, because I am unfortunately committed the grave cardinal sin of having never played all the way through KOTOR. Never got off Taris, in fact. Yes, my great shame. I've been waiting all these years for the kind of urge to return to that kind of RPG space to kick in, so I can properly enjoy and capitalize on it with a run through of the game. And that happened about 2 months ago now, guys. Right, something like that. We didn't quite get to it immediately because
something like that. I think.
I don't know.
We didn't quite get to it immediately. One, because life. Two, because, oh my God, is KOTOR an absolute pain in the ass to record. My God, we went through a bit of a hack and slash on getting that thing to work. And multiple test runs of how we were going to be ending up recording the actual thing. But eventually settled on the fact that we're just going to talk about it as we usually do in a kind of a post analysis, not necessarily planet by planet, but sort of section of the game by section of the game as it runs as best we can. And then I'll lay over video on the background for you guys to watch of different parts as we talk about them, so you've got the visual to run with that. Yeah, we were going to kind of try and play it live, but didn't quite work out because with RPG games being what they are, a lot of talking.
I don't really like. I don't feel like I'm a good commentator kind of like content person. Like that's not really my forte. And but we give it a good try anyway, and especially after all the effort you did trying to make it run and be recordable on your machine, and then swiftly kind of came to the conclusion that it's basically like constantly talking over like the characters who are talking or each other, and it's just not the greatest,
Yeah,
it's not the greatest.
It wouldn't have been so.
You
It would have been so bad on
have
the.
that overlay.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been so bad for the recording terms. It's just for me, who hadn't played it all the way through before, it was kind of going to be affecting my first initial experience, which wouldn't make me particularly useful for commentating on it in post, I guess. So yeah, it was trying to find the right balance, and we're going to go through it this way as we usually do and try and go as in depth as possible. We've made notes, obviously. These two in particular have a very good memory
I
of the
made
game
no
anyway,
notes.
because you did. Yeah, you grew up with this, as has been spoken about before. But yeah, we're going to dive in on what we think about the first kind of tutorial section of Knights of the Old Republic. Taris, kind of infamous, because I mean, before I even went into this game back in the day, all my friends who have been through this game and absolutely adored it, and you have well as well, of course, and people kind of come in with the caveat of warning, okay, wait till you get off Taris before you properly judge the game, because it's not particularly well received by most people. But I've got to be honest. I mean, I know that that's true, first of all, that it does get way better, but also I don't particularly find myself not enjoying this first section of the game. I think it is actually quite engaging and quite good at kind of onboarding people, particularly if you haven't had any real experience with RPGs overall. I think it's a fair kind of way of introducing you to the concept of the game, and as well as the world that it's setting up, not just Star Wars, if you're new to that somehow, but also this pocket of time within the setting. I think it does a good job kind of encapsulating that very rapidly.
Yeah, I think it does
So
pretty much everything a first level really should do in terms of introducing you to the mechanics, but also just, the characters and the sort of the general sort of scope of the adventure that you're going to be on. And there's also I was also surprised too, like, a lot of the foreshadowing, for later events in the game, I also think is actually pretty well handled here. Nothing is so overt to where you could immediately, jump to certain conclusions, but at the same time, when you go back, after like repeated playthroughs, you could kind of see some of the, I guess you could say, undercurrents of what they were ultimately going to build up to later on, in the game. And I think part of that reputation too, Callan, just to your point about like just general people's, views on this sort of planet. I think a lot of it kind of comes down to the fact that there is such a massive jump between, Taris and the following planets that although Taris itself, I think, is really, really good on its own, it's just everything else just gets cranked up to 11 so immediately
Yeah.
afterwards. So I think that's where a lot of that kind of falls. And even things like little things like gameplay wise, like, you obviously don't get your lightsaber until after, you leave this planet as well, which obviously becomes a major, one of the central pillars of gameplay throughout. So that probably also has something to do with it, just from that perspective. But yeah, on its own, it like again, I think this level does everything right.
Hmm.
Um, I agree with all that. I would say there's several things I want to say. So before I forget, Evan, I told you, do you have it on your phone still? The YouTube video. Uh,
Yeah. Okay.
there's a video essay here on YouTube that people can check out on this topic. And I don't just say it because I agree with it. I say it because it's very well handled and
Yeah.
very well explained. And I think if people haven't seen it, they should check it out. Give it a shout because I don't know the channel name.
Yeah, it's called Why Terrace is Genius by Loading Screen, uploaded 2 years ago.
Yeah, okay, so check it out because she goes to great pains to explain not only why is it it's not really so much in defense of Terrace, like this is why Terrace isn't as bad as people think it is. It's not that. She kind of like acknowledges all of that, takes it as read, but says the spirit of the game is kind of like set up by Terrace, by the events that happen on Terrace. And if you're going to skip Terrace, or if you're going to kind of just play your way through Terrace and not absorb any of it, you're kind of like cheating yourself of the real experience of like what the actual story is about. And it's a good hour long, like if you're not watching it like sped up or anything like that. But I say it's all worth it, even if you want to just kind of like listen to it in the background. And she also does a good job of pointing out the fact that you probably shouldn't watch the video if you don't want any spoilers at all. But she is good about the spoiler, like the major
Mhm.
spoiler. So if you're somehow watching us and taking that recommendation and don't know what we're talking about, I don't know who you are or why you're listening to this, but you know what I mean. It's just a very well done video essay. I would say I was definitely one of those people who was not like a Terrace hater, but was definitely like a Terrace detractor. But I started playing this game when I was like 12 or 13. I'm 34 now. I have like a very different perspective on most things. I won't say everything. I still feel the same way about some things as I did back then. But in general, yeah, I was very much like, oh, when do I get the lightsaber and some force powers? And this is boring and I don't like
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And it was hard. And it wasn't really hard. It was just I didn't know how to play RPGs. I was one of those people. So even though it does do a good job, you
Ditto.
can only idiot proof things so much for like somebody who's a kid, because kids are idiots, unless they're not, but they also are. So, don't get mad at me. Don't correct me. I'm right. You were. If you are one still, Sorry, but I don't know why you're listening to us, you know. But anyway, it's just one of those things where I feel like I grew into Terrace. You know what I mean? I tend to say that I think that there are certain things you experience at a younger age that you either grow out of or you grow into. And I think
Mm.
Terrace is one of those things that you grow into, actually,
Mm.
because it is, you know, it's a Star Wars game, right? And you're like, oh, I can't do anything cool. I can't do anything Star Wars. But so much of it is based on, like, Star Wars, particularly the film that was once called Star Wars, like A New Hope. Like, I mean, so much of the things that people complain about, um, kinda jumping ahead a little bit, but, like, you do all this work trying to rescue Bastila, and then Bastila, you get her, and she's got, like, an attitude, and she doesn't think you're doing a good job. Have you all heard of Princess
I
Leia?
was going to say, there's a
And, like,
Yeah,
reason for
yeah.
that.
Yeah, you know
referencing
what
that
I mean? So
Homage.
exactly.
yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
those
so
tropes really, yeah, like it's all there. And actually, something else too, I found myself really getting into with this like recent replay is like I sort of touched on this in our Darth Maul Shadowhunter review, but like there's when you're constructing a setting, specifically like a mega city like this, there's a difference between like making a setting, feeling big and lived in versus just being big and having people. And Terrace, like especially as you just kind of go through and just talk to the civilians, like the amount of effort they went into to like give this planet like a sense of identity and history and just immersing you into the culture of the setting is really well done for the time. And I was genuinely kind of surprised about just how much depth can really be found in this planet. And just like take away all the stuff that came later, that touched on its history, even just in the context of this level. Like Terrace itself really does feel like its own character. And again, I really have to give it props for that, and something that also like this game as a whole obviously exceeds on. But like Terrace is not exempt from that, and I was genuinely impressed by how much of that still holds up, even with the broader context of the lore going out of its way to expand the history of the planet, above and beyond.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
I think that's
for sure.
particularly impressive as well, given the fact that it is effective. Well, not the same as Coruscant, but so similar to something like Coruscant. Like it's got the
Hmm.
levels, it's got the kind of the kind of class aspect, it's got the fact that it is obviously just a Humanopolis. But it feels distinctly different, both in terms of like the aesthetic and the age it's trying to, or the era it's trying to capture, but also the kind of things going on with it. Like I think it just they layered it on quite nicely, while making it just distinct enough to feel like its own thing. I also
Yes.
liked as well, just before I forget, because you mentioned it there, the way it feeds in, like it kind of establishes the lore around the lead-ins to the kind of the mini dungeons of the world, and particularly with the kind of sewer run when you're rescuing Zalbar. Not quite the sewers, but you know what I mean. That the kind of atmosphere and
It's
environment of
basically
that
a sewer.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the Undercity and the sewers,
yeah,
yes.
it's
I
kind
mean,
of
Yeah.
you
I
dip
mean,
into
yeah,
both, don't you?
yeah.
Um,
He's in the sewer for sure,
yeah,
yeah.
but the environment there is really well put together. You even though it's essentially just the same kind of environment you've been working before, they do just enough to kind of kind of set the groundwork and let you feel like you're in a separate place and really kind of up the atmosphere on. It's something that's true of the entire planet, but just those bits where you're transitioning kind of from the general open terrain space to those particular dungeon areas, I thought they were really well handled. I enjoyed that more than I expected to, given its Taris' reputation. But yeah,
Um,
the whole planet I think was done very well. Given again how it's relatively simple design in terms of layout, because they were only able to get so much squeezed into this. Particularly given the fact that it is, of course, an RPG of its age. If you're trying to get as much involved with the lore and with the characters and with the story as they were clearly trying to, you have to kind of limit the scope of what your open areas are going to be like, what you're graphically capable of achieving, etc. So I think
yeah.
I really do think they got the balance just right on it.
I think also it really is just a question of like a lot of it is just it's down to the player. Like, and if you're coming in just ignorant about the way that RPGs work, or if you don't have like maybe the most spare time in your life and you were just looking
Hmm.
for a game and you're kind of frustrated that it's not progressing as fast as you like. Um, I mean, when I think about how it used to be, I felt like Terrace took forever, you know, and back then it probably did take me about 5 hours to do, maybe 5 or 6 hours after I developed
Hmm.
an idea of what I was supposed to be doing and how to do it, and how to level a character. And I had to restart a few times. That's for damn sure. Not least of which because the first time I was playing it, I wasn't taking anything seriously. I was just doing haha dark side. I'm gonna give me your money. Haha, you're dead.
Mm.
Haha, and that got really old really fast. Like, and I mean really fast. But I'd already done it, so I was like, I gotta restart because this is not how I want to play the game. Also,
Mm.
we have not talked about the actual tutorial level, which
Yes, yeah,
is
we
the
will
Ender
get to that.
Spire.
Yeah.
The Ender Spire is like a tutorial level. You know what I mean? Where they're telling you like, press this button. This helps you move your camera. You know, like just nonsense. Taris isn't. Taris is exempt from that. Taris is like, with the possible exception of trying to figure out how the fast transit system works out, like to move your character instantly. Did you know
Mm.
that you could do that, by the way?
Yes,
Colin,
yeah,
did you figure that out? I
it
realized I
reminds
never
you
told
of
you about
weird
that.
times from memory when we were going through. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, by the way, you
Okay.
can do this. It's like, okay, thanks.
It's
I
really
felt like I
helpful
didn't
on
feel the
Taris.
need to. Yeah, there's quite a lot of back and forth, but with a few exceptions, I didn't feel like I needed to too much. I thought the
Oh, okay.
distance you
I
were
definitely
moving
use it.
wasn't too
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah,
I was
I
always
use
just
it.
I was
Yeah.
always just zipping around like with that. Like
For
it really
sure.
helped.
There's a lot of
Um,
footwork going on if you don't know
yeah,
about that.
Mm.
yeah,
But the Ender Spire,
yeah,
we can talk about it a little bit more later if you're looking to. But that's like the real like kind of like this is kind of like rough out the gate, but it's very short. And also the initial segment of it, you literally can't die at it. So
Mm.
there's that. But that doesn't mean you're going to be good immediately once you get on Terrace. You don't know what you're doing. I didn't know what I was doing, and like I said, I was sort of just abusing all the characters because dark side, haha, like just being funny. But
mm,
even to like my 12-year-old mentality, like that was like, okay, but I'm not playing like an episode of The Simpsons here, right? This
Mm.
isn't like, I mean, this is getting kind of goofy. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I wanted to just kind of like actually absorb the story, so I restarted.
yeah,
So all those kind of things I kind of like learned on the fly, and now I can do the planet in like maybe 3 hours. Like
Mm.
it's not that long, and considering so like albeit I'm clicking through a lot of hutties that
Yeah,
that I already know what they're
I was
saying.
literally
So,
about to
so there's
say
that.
that's solely predicated
Yeah.
on how whether or not you're listening to the Bible
Yeah.
so as they're talking. Because I'll be honest, I tried to force myself to listen through that. I was trying to okay, I'm going to try and rewind my brain a bit and stop with the instant gratification thing. I managed about 2.5 hours maybe where I didn't skip any of the translator, and then I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to give it like at least
I,
a
I was-
2 second
I'm
cut
still
off.
gonna I'm still gonna
yeah,
give
that's
myself more
impressive.
points. I'm gonna give myself more points than you because I've been through it the hard way more
Mm.
than once before this, but now I know it. So I know what I'm skipping. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? So there's
I
that.
listened for
Yeah,
about the
yeah,
length of what you'd expect to read it from. I maybe add 2 more
As
seconds
long
on
as you're
and then
reading it,
skip.
it's
So
fine.
yeah, because if
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not you don't want to just skip because that just it's designed deliberately to kind of make you get into the headspace of like your. I mean, you said before, Matt, in other recordings, but it's kind of like you're playing through a book, right? It's a reading
Cool.
experience in terms of how it's framed as a kind of story. Just with the visual medium of the fact it's a video game on top of that, obviously. But it's everything's designed to kind of help get you in that headspace. So I was only fractionally trying to skip through that. I reckon if you
yeah.
weren't skipping anything at all and you really weren't gaming it and you were just fully steeping yourself, it would be about 5 hours for the whole of Taris comfortably. Like that would be like the sort of pace that you can expect for it,
Because
which I think is
the
a good
aliens
amount
talk pretty
personally.
slow. Yeah.
Mm.
Especially if you
But
just kind of know the general flow of like the various quest chains, you know.
Mm.
But I mean, when you think about like how many of the characters that you were like introduced to on the planet, you have Canderous, you have T3M4, you have Bastila, you have Zalbar, Mission, Karth, and then like kind of figuring out your position and things like including the player character as well. I mean, ultimately, there's like 9 slots, right?
Mm.
You know what I
Mm,
mean? So I mean that it's a lot. You're only going to get HK47, Jolie Bendo, and maybe Johanny, depending on. Also HK47 is a maybe. By the way, you don't
Mm.
have to find him. You don't have to talk to him in the whole game. You can just play the game without ever going into his shop. But
possibly.
anyway,
No.
it is for many reasons. You can only
Yeah,
do it if you're okay with pulling an Anakin and wiping up the sand people without talking to them. But
yeah, exactly.
and you don't have the cause that he had. Not that he had cause to kill everybody,
Well,
but
yeah,
like you
The
just
women
you don't
and
have.
the
I'm a big
children
ass
too.
on that
Yeah,
one.
Oh god,
But
I
actually,
hate
yeah.
them.
to your point about the characters, something I also just kind of found like kind of interesting, like talking about like how this is so much like a book, the character voice, because like in my head, I'm so used to characters like Karth and Mission, like as they were at the end of the game. So seeing like them at this beginning stages and just the differences in their personalities, like Karth being just so untrustworthy, Mission being a lot more, guarded and snappish than she later becomes later in the story. It really speaks to just on a writing level, just like how the progression that you go on, with these characters throughout. It was interesting because, like, again, it's like it's not what I immediately think. It's like, Karth, why are you being so, aggressive? It's
Snarky.
like, oh yeah, this is how you started, like this is it's very interesting, which is also
I'm a
something.
Karth. I'm a Karth defender. I might be the only one on the planet,
No,
but
no,
I'm a
I like
Karth
Karth. I
defender.
like
Yeah.
Karth.
No, I'm fine with him too.
Yeah,
I think the hate he gets is really unnecessary.
he starts out very strong. Like he does level off very quickly, and I like that I particularly enjoy the banter he has with Mission. I found that really really amusing. Especially when she's
Oh yeah.
coming back in for the apology, and he doesn't quite, or the apology you've seen rather, it doesn't quite get received immediately because they're kind of tuning to their sense of humor. I really enjoyed that. But at the same time, I understand that people's first impression of him maybe not be his best foot forward because he's very much like I'm a paranoid, terrified of betrayal, need to learn to trust kind of character,
Mhm.
which they kind of all are in some ways.
No,
Given
I
the
mean, well,
starting point they're coming from.
you just said they all are. So yeah, people are just people. I think tend to map themselves onto the player character so much that
Mm,
they're not really thinking about like other characters as kind of agents of their own who have their own perspective on things, and they just go, "How is he treating me? Well, I don't
mm,
like him anymore." And it's just like, no, he explains himself very well to the point where I think I want to like talk about it a little bit more later. And it is one of the reasons why Taris, you shouldn't skip it because I have done it. I have done. I wanted to mention that earlier. Is I have used a mod that lets you just skip straight to Dantooine, and it's like, ooh, within like 5 minutes, I got my lightsaber, and isn't that great?
mm.
It's if you're just looking for like if you just want to get through the game. I've been through the game many times in my life, and sometimes if you just want to like experience like a certain conversation, or I used to like be looking for like little bits of lore for this or that project I was working on, or a little bit of footage or a key dialogue point. So I would do things like you can use the warp cheat as well to warp your way around the game a lot.
Mm.
Because I don't know like the technical lingo for explaining that, but there's like the way that things are instantiated within the game. If you just warp to a location for the first time, sometimes you'll be able to see the key cutscene there without doing anything leading up to it. So anyway, it's just the way that the game's designed. But my point being is that you really do cheat yourself. You do rob yourself of the actual experience of actually playing through the game. And also, you're talking about Evan a few minutes ago. You're talking about the way that Mission and Karth are sort of different early on than the way like they are at the end. You can only ever have two party members with you at a time while you're doing things,
Mm.
and so the games like this are designed to be played over and over again with different combinations of the characters experiencing the same quest through different eyes and things like that. But yeah, I just to me, Taris is definitely a planet that like I have a really soft spot for now, despite never thinking that way when I was a kid.
Mm.
If we can I maybe talk a little bit about Taris and like kind of like a from like a lore perspective
Yeah, for
because
sure. Dive in.
Yeah,
what we're
yeah.
talking about what we're talking about today and what that video essay that I recommended people check about what that was concerned with as well is sort of like Taris as it exists in game, you know what I mean, and like kind of like the purpose that it serves for this particular narrative, and in our experiences and opinions of that. But Taris is it's kind of some of what I'm going to say. It wouldn't be fair to give this game all the kudos in the world for because it was like grafted onto the planet through later works, whether those were
Mm.
encyclopedias or the role-playing game guides, which were really good for like fleshing out the planets that were not from the films. Those were really good for giving planetary histories and cultures and
Mm.
all that kind of world builder energy stuff going on for people who want to run campaigns with them and everything like that. And Terrace had a pretty good spread, and a lot of what I'm going to be talking about pulls from that. But it's to the point where, and I think even in like Legacy of the Force, I think Boba Fett had like a apartment on Terrace. Like obviously it's still around thousands of years later, but so it's a planet that comes back around, a few times despite having been destroyed because it wasn't Alderaan destroyed; it was just razed to the ground and rebuilt, right? Um, did I say Onderon or Alderaan? I meant to say Alderaan anyway,
Mm.
but anyway, so what this planet is it's kind of I describe it as the kind of Tatooine of this era, and that's because like Tatooine is kind of like where um the major characters' destinies are kind of like formed, or even if they're like kind of left dormant or whatever. Like in the case of like Luke having to be rediscovered, or kind of reclaimed by the Jedi and everything, having been hidden away there, or Anakin being discovered for the first time by the Jedi, things like that. And also just because of where Tatooine is, it's next to like these uh travel ports, like these hyperspace lanes, so people come and go a lot, despite the fact that Tatooine is a bit of a hellhole. I mean, or at the very least, it just kind of sucks. Maybe it's not a hellhole. It's not horrific, but
they're having to farm moisture here, guys. So yeah, it's no one's
yeah,
paradise, and not from
yeah.
a standard human template anyway.
Most people are not from here, right? They just come here to do business, or it's like a stepping stone to some other bit of business in their life, that kind of a thing. But whether you're from here or not, when you pass through, it changes your life. It changes the people that you meet, things like that. It's one of those sort of thematic confluence points. Taris has become that, and I think it's one of, off the top of my head, 3 planets that were designed for this game. The others being Manon and the planet that goes by a few different names. It's the Rakatan homeworld. It's called Lahan. It's also called Rakata Prime. It's also called the Unknown World. Might even be called something else that doesn't come immediately to mind. But yeah, but that's we'll talk more about that planet much later on. But as it's sort of the penultimate level of the game. But the business of Taris is that it was kind of informally known as like the capital of the Outer Rim. It was a planet that kind of became an ecumenopolis very rapidly, and that's all because of where it was located, which it was next to these key hyperspace lanes. And so people did a lot of trade and travel out here, but also these things that we'll talk about more, swoop bikes, that technology, like they were the preeminent, swoop technology in the galaxy at that time. So that kind of like built their economy and everything else, and they kind of became like a miniature Coruscant in the sector, and that was all based upon like where they were. They had access to all these.
I guess you could call it the Detroit of the Star Wars galaxy in a way.
Sure. And much like Detroit, it's not what it was. So the reasons for that in Terrace's case are like, it's not like a double whammy. It's like I don't know, what would you call like a 4 or 5 streak, like a pentawhammy, like just of hit after hit after hit after hit. Because like, so their rise was based around their geographic, location. Like it was really great for fostering its rise and everything. And once they had something to export, that turned them into this power, this sort of powerhouse. And they are a republic world. Keep that in mind. Then it's not something that, is just like planet random or something. But location is also the reason for its fall, because they're right near where the Mandalorians, started making like, strikes that were right on the like into like actual Republic space, as opposed to being like sort of like on these sort of frontier fringes. And so and even and that was during the Mandalorian Wars, which is like no, sorry. Even before this incarnation of the Mandalorian Wars, that there was history with Exar Kun's generation, which is like 40, because they had allied themselves with the Mandalorians. So you had like 40 years worth of that. Then you have the Padawan massacre of Taris, which is its whole rabbit hole that maybe we'll save for comic books, that because we'll talk about that. And that the reason why that's about 7 or 8 years before the events of this game from memory. And the reason why that's important is because during the drama of that story, the Jedi recalled their members that were based on the planet. So there wasn't really a strong Jedi presence anymore when the new incarnation, the actual full-blown Mandalorian Wars, which happened about 5 years ago, or maybe 5 to 7 years ago, because I guess Malik and Riven stopped it, 4 or 5 years ago. When that hit, so you've got like, Exar Kun happening to the generation prior, and then you've got the Padawan massacre of Taris, the bombing campaign of the Mandalorians, the Jedi pulling their forces out, and then you have the Mandalorians hitting full force, and then you have Revan and Malak, reclaiming the planet, and then you have now the planet falls to Malak's Sith forces. So I mean, it was hit again and again and again and again and
Bit
again.
of a problem planet.
And yeah, and then during the course of the MMO, they rebuild the planet largely, and it kind of becomes like this kind of it's kind of like this galvanizing force where the Republic is saying, look, we can rebuild. The Sith won't diminish us. They won't break our spirit. But and it starts off that way. But the person doing that is like a very, very problematic Republic leader who, Callan, you'll understand this. She's basically like an Admiral Kane type, so there's that.
Favorite character.
Yeah. Well, she is one of my favorite characters. Not to say that I like her, but I think she's an amazing
You remember
character.
her for various reasons.
but there's a difference between a character you like and a character that you think is just like very, very well crafted,
Yeah, just a bit.
perfectly executed, kind of a thing. But so she was kind of intentionally using Taris as kind of like a propaganda point. And she herself is sort of like a personification of Taris, where it's kind of beautiful on the surface, but there's all these problems underneath, you know. So, but even after having rebuilt Taris in that way, and having kind of poised it for success again after all these successive crises over the course of a few centuries, by that point, the world never became what it was anymore because of the Hydean way. That was the major, you know, point, that line of travel, the hyperspace lane that connected one point of the galaxy to the next, that made Taris, like its geographic little hub zone, completely obsolete. So even though it was rebuilt, it never became, you know, the capital of the Outer Rim, as it had kind of been informally known again ever. And that's the reason why it's a planet that there's multitudes of stories that go well beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about today, that you can actually, you know, pick up while you're going through the comics, going through other games, going through encyclopedias, going through novels, things like that. Because it all started here. You know, the success of this game, like starting here on this planet, it kind of became this generation's Tatooine, or this era's Tatooine, if you understand me. But again, a lot of that is to do with things outside of the actual game. So I don't want to give this team all the credit for that. Having said that, it's kind of like George Lucas. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
I
they
don't
laid
give
a
him the
hell of a
credit for
seed for
They
it
everything
for
he
began
us all.
started.
going off into such a
Yeah,
rich history and such a rich setting, you know, and
yeah.
even in the context of this game, like I was saying before, like the amount of history they do put in just this level is, you know, the fact that they were able to build so much out of it without anything feeling contrived, again, I think is really, you know, major notch to the various writers who took this setting and ran with it, because it is very impressive and it's very easy to get overdone. In fact, some people even criticize Tatooine, like, why does all the major stuff happen on Tatooine? Like, that is, I don't necessarily agree with that criticism, but that is
Why
something
does
that
everything
people,
happen at Hogwarts? Like, you know, where's
yeah,
everything else
exactly.
happening?
It's the same logic. So it's like
Yeah.
I've never really agreed with that, but it is something that people have brought up. But the fact that it is so smooth with everything else in the broader context of the lore is, you know, definitely worth highlighting. And I think this, ironically, the swoop racing, I will say, is one of those aspects of this level that I don't think really holds up as well as various other aspects from a gameplay perspective. That's just my experience.
I
Granted,
was
I
never
will say, like,
very good at it.
I
Yeah.
I mean, I will say this just point blank. I have never been good at racing games, just period. Like, this isn't just a KOTOR thing. This is like a me thing. So I fully acknowledge that, like, my lack of skill is definitely playing a part in this. But I did find those aspects a bit clunky, just
I
compared to everything else. You know, I don't know.
This one is obviously designed to be fairly easy, because you have to do it because of, you know,
Right?
to progress the rescue of Bastila and everything, even though she herself would contend she was not rescued, not without cause. But the other ones that you run into in later in the game, you can do it on Tatooine and also on Manon. Those are immensely frustrating. They're very rewarding financially, but they're very, very frustrating. And I have done them, but only after being like spending like an hour or more per race, you know, trying to
Oh,
like, yeah, yeah,
those ruined me.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also I was really cheap, and you have to pay to enter each time, and so I would have to reload the same save file, because I'm not giving you more than my initial entry. I'm not
Yeah.
giving you more than my I'm not doing it. So,
It'll burn through your credits if you're
yeah,
not decent at it. That's what happened
yeah,
to me, and I had to do the same thing. I was like, "Oh my god, I'm poor now. I need more, need
yeah.
to reload."
It's all fake
I
money. I don't even use it
I
really,
know.
but I'm very
How did you
cheap when
do
it
on
comes
that,
to giving
Callan?
Huts money, you know, things like that. Yeah,
particularly, yeah,
Yeah,
particularly when it's going to the pocket of the huts. It's a
yeah.
yeah,
point of
exactly.
principle at that point.
Yeah, Callan, did you do better in those sections than I
Well, I
did?
mean, I've only
Like,
done the easiest one, obviously, with the first one of
that's what I mean. Like,
Taris,
did you do
but I
better on the
didn't
race?
particularly struggle with it.
Okay.
It's
I
not. This one
feel
is not
I'll
difficult. Yeah.
put it on
Um,
screen now, so people can judge whether or not I did very well at all. I don't know what the metric is for this one, but like Matt said, it felt very easy. By design, so I'm looking forward to when that does ramp up in challenge. So I had
just
fun with it.
on the
It's dated for sure, but it's just, you know, it's a mini game within an RPG. They don't have to be particularly
Right.
amazing.
yeah,
It's calling to
yeah.
I'm not
mind
saying it's
similar
like an
games
objective
of
flaw or anything. It's just compared to everything else. It
yeah,
probably
yeah,
just
for sure.
hasn't.
It's not what you come to KOTOR for. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But
As,
hey, I'll give it
as
this.
frust-
It's better than the stat mission from bloody Jedi Power Battles that we did together. Ugh, God.
What? I loved that when I was
It was
little.
it was
Anyway,
fun, but by God, is it frustrating when you hit like the wrong kind of obstacle on that one because you have to start all the way back at the beginning again. Oh god.
Yeah, it's the
I think
motivation
I
to
think
keep
I
going.
think
I
it's a
think it's
question
fun
of what you're
enough.
going for. Because like if you're
Yeah.
shooting high, if you're aiming high, it's difficult. But if you're just coasting, that is arguably the easiest level in the whole game. But because you can literally just like kind of just boom, 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 and not like
Yeah, pretty much.
barely move like out of
And the
out of
cut
this or that obstacle.
Yeah,
It's very easy.
exactly.
But
and
that raises a question that, or just raises a point that we should make clear is that we're talking about this in bits and pieces as you're going through it in bits and pieces. So there are things in the
Mm.
game that you haven't experienced yet. I don't think that we made that quite
Yes,
clear.
oh yes. I haven't played through the entire game. I stopped at the end just before, well, as you arrive in Dantooine. Very excited to get back into that, but we're going to be doing it in
Oh yeah,
blocks as
perfect.
makes
Yeah,
it
What a
I think
easier.
wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's also worth giving some praise to. Like this game is known obviously for its musical score and the actual Taris theme. Again, like I found it's not my favorite track, but that's only because the other ones are like sent from
Yep.
the heavens. But it's very
Yeah.
good. Like
I love
it's
Undercity Terrace. Yeah.
yeah,
It's great. Yeah.
the actual like ambiance and the tones that like each level kind of has. It's very well integrated. And again, it's like it's easy. It's another thing like you really shouldn't overlook in terms of just the musical score of the game overall.
Mm.
Okay, so do I want to kind of start transitioning into talking about the actual, quest chains and everything on World themselves here?
Yeah, sure.
I was going to ask Callan, was there anything that you didn't complete? Like if you looked in your journal, is there anything left over
Not
or
that I'm aware of. Oh yes, the one thing. The last round of the arena because I didn't want to kill what's his face because at that point in the story,
Bendak
Bendak
Starkiller,
Starkiller.
yeah, the best character, best name, the most
Oh yeah,
unforgettable. Yeah.
How many Starkillers have we
so
got now?
badass.
Oh, a
Running
lot.
tally. That's
Yeah.
3, right?
It was
But,
more novel at the time, but yes.
but no, it felt like it wasn't important at that stage. Like most of the other stuff, and it's the credit of the design of the game, of course, that you can ebb and flow through the quests and not feel like you're taking the mick. Like obviously you've got a main objective here, but everything else kind of flows reasonably well around the kind of main thrust of that central quest line. There's a few bits here and there, like the arena obviously is very much aside from that, but you can argue I need some resources, so it's a good way of getting that. It kind of runs contrary to the idea that you're trying to keep a low profile, but we'll ignore that. But that was the only exception, I think, to being relevant. I think everything else felt like it was reasonably on flow.
I like that. That's why I'm a Karth defender because Karth calls that out. He's sort of like, I don't know about all this, and then he's just kind of like, well, I guess we do need the credits, And then even when you take
A
up
reasonable
bounties,
line of
like
inquiry. Yeah.
when you take up the bounties, if you decide to do them, like if Bastila's in your party about that, it's also great because it's a classic like RPG where it's very fluid in terms of like the order in which you do things. It's largely left up to you, and there are many things that are optional that you don't have to do at all. But you can the bounties and the arena. Those can end up being some of the first things that you get yourself into. But they can also be wait till the last. And if Bastila's in your party when you start doing them, she's very Jedi, very stodgy, just like bounty hunting. Whoa, just like like how dare we, kind of a thing. Like we're not going to do that. And Karth actually takes a different line where he's like, well, a lot of these people that are on this list, they really suck, and we need the resources, and we're just kind of like mopping up, getting rid of some bad people here. He's very pragmatic and almost not very Karth, but he also draws the line at just doing the special contract killings where he's like, well, okay, because whether Bastila's in the party or not, he's like, the ones that are for Davik, like just doing like his personal kind of business of like, being a part of his goon squad effectively. He's just like, well, I don't know about those. But like, so like he has a line where he's just like, no, those ones, I'm not sanctioning that kind of a thing. But interesting that she and he have that particular disagreement over that issue, and they kind of do butt heads throughout the game a bit, but not in the classic or maybe like kind of hackneyed sense. They're not just on the team at loggerheads all the time. They just chime in at each other when they have a genuine dispute or disagreement. But generally, they're pretty well aligned. As you're going through things like that. So that was just an instance that I want to talk about. Do you want to talk then about? Do you want to just start with the bounties and then we'll talk about the other quests a little bit later? Because then we can kind of cycle through them a little bit. So so you did do them all except for
all
Bendak.
but Ben died, and because the other special contract killing was an assassin, right? So I wasn't too worried about.
Oh, you didn't do
Salva?
Oh, I always take her out.
No, I did. But as I'm saying, she's known as an assassin. Like it wasn't just being the goon squad for the hell of it. It was also going to be useful for society. So that was why I kind of felt okay with doing that one. Also, I think from memory, I stumbled upon it by accident as well because I was clearing.
That's possible.
I was clearing everything out, and this is that person that was referenced. I guess, well, I'll deal with you now. Then it wasn't like I went hunting for her or anything. That's one thing actually I want to flag about the design of Taris. Again, this isn't so much a KOTOR issue, but it's kind of an RPG thing. But I think Taris probably suffers it more than most I've encountered in games like this. Is a lot of what you're doing is just breaking and entering into every single apartment you walk past and accidentally finding parts of the game.
Like
you know?
You said.
I know, but
it's
it feels particularly egregious in this case because you are literally it's just a corridor, and if you don't break into anyone's house, you see basically nothing. You know, so I feel like that, if there was one criticism to levy against it, I would say that would be it. But again, limitations of the era, level design in terms of graphic capabilities, all that kind of stuff. I understand that, but that would be the one flaw I'd raise.
If I'm playing like an Elder Scrolls game, I am always stealing every time I leave my house.
bucket onto the random NPC's head as a child, because of course you have to do that.
Nature of the beast with that one. Yeah.
But with Taris though, it's not because this is my favorite game. I don't think I've said that this recording. Like, this is my favorite game, and it's not because it's the best game in the world, but it's my favorite game. You know, I grew up with this game. My life would have to be different for it not to be my favorite game. It's my favorite game. I do think that it handles things a little bit better than your typical RPG, because there's usually like just no reason for this state of affairs. But I think you can make a pretty cogent case that a lot of these people don't actually live where you find them, because this is like an abruptly imposed quarantine where nobody's being allowed to leave. And there are obviously native Tarisians, but it feels like many people are stuck here, and they're just kind of like, you know, where they are. And so, I mean, I'm not trying to say like that you're not stealing, you are, but I'm just saying like the actual act of like investigating or just popping your way in and out of there, and they do call you on it. So like, I think Dia does say, she's one of the bounties, and she does say like, what are you doing here? You can't just barge in here.
Yeah,
like,
they
like,
do flag it occasionally, but it's like the fact that you can go up to a box and just like steal everything from in it, or you're literally just ransacking an apartment. Like the fact that it doesn't layer like a bit of story on top of that, I felt like that could have been done a little bit better. But again, it's a very, very tiny gripe. The actual how densely they're packed though runs counter to that. Obviously, that helps it a lot, because so many of these different apartment complexes, even if they are replicated, you know, just different levels of the same stuff, they're very richly packed. Like most apartments you break into will have at least some piece of story connected to it, something to kind of connect, if not in that exact moment, then later down the line to another quest that kind of comes up and you stumble back into it again in retrospect. But no, I think it's well handled there.
So there's 4 of them that you've done then, right? Because so there's Dia, Largo, Matrix, and Selvon, right? Because you didn't do Bendak, right? Yes. And I think all of them are found in an apartment. So so there's that. Why don't we take it in order then? So Dia, she's like your next door neighbor. She's like right there next to like your little hideout,
my favorite of the
right?
4 as well, in terms of story impact. Again,
I expected that
impact, world impact. You know, making it feel like it's actually you're part of a setting, because there was a lot of, even though it's just basically 3 beats of you meet her, you face the person who she needs you to deal with, and then you go back to her again. Holden, for the record, guys, I'm terrible with names in these situations. So I remember the visuals, I remember the stories, I remember the characters, but names.
This is like my favorite game, my favorite book. I know it. You know, I know it. It's like knowing him is like knowing Greedo. Greedo is not important, but everyone knows Greedo. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You just do. Yeah.
And the thing I like about it as well, because even though it's like a really shallow, like in terms of gameplay beats, like it's not really a dense quest or story. It's just encounter, go to the person, return to the original quest giver. It feels really deep in terms of the world and the story, because you're encountering the spaces you're kind of meeting these people in, and the cantina environment, the story behind it, the fact that this is someone who has had a bounty placed on them for very or because of actions they've taken for very good reasons. You know, the fact that this Holden character has been a creep in the way that he has. And is exploiting the system to it as
Hang on
now,
I'm a Holden defender. Just kidding.
I was going to say, I was like, wait, what have I missed? I thought, is there a whole level to this that I didn't encounter? Okay, good.
No, he's one of the worst characters ever. Like, aside from just being like an asshole, like it's also like if you have to talk to him more than twice, his dialogue is just, I just want to watch the dancing girls.
It's just, oh god, it's skeevy arsehole.
All the dancing girls. So he's crazy. But
but just the fact that you're having the story spun from and it's introducing you to the idea of the conflicting perspectives as well. That's one of the best things about this. It's very probably the first example in terms of like if you just go straight from your apartment and just break into the one next door to find Dia, it will be the first instance of the whole I'm hearing the story told this way, but then I encounter a twist to it later on, as it were. Or vice versa in this case. It's good for showing you this is the kind of quest you're going to be dealing with in this RPG. It's going to be don't expect the first instance of the story to be all there is to it. And that's a really important one to hammer in, because in a game that, in terms of gameplay, is as simple as this, you have to have the complexity and the true kind of game of the experience be in the story choices and roleplay moments you've got there. So love that.
Good way of setting up the kind of themes that you're going to encounter throughout the game, and like it forces you to think in a certain way, you know, beyond what's just put in front of you in order to kind of see, you know, again, like it's like seeing, you know, beneath, but also just not like it's not predictable, and that's kind of what you kind of have to put yourself into the headspace throughout that game in order to see the deeper layers of like all the storylines that unfold. So again, that's why I think this level really succeeds at just kind of ingratiating you into the sort of KOTOR sort of mindset that you know take with you throughout, and that will, even as it, you know, certain things adjust over time, you know. And again, it's great world building, like you were saying, Callan.
As long as you accept that Revan is just breaking into every single room he sees.
Well, you know.
Okay, well, since you make that point again, what I was going to say was, because I know that that's your perspective on these things, I actually expected you to find him first, because that is the other way that you can get this quest. Aside from just learning about it at the bounty office, from Zax, the hut that works for Davik.
Sorry, I love the name, the bounty office. I don't know why that always.
Yeah, this is the official space for this kind of thing. It's just a hut.
Come to the bounty office. It's like, as you do.
Well, I mean, is it not a thing? I mean, like, when you have like an actual, like, yeah, I mean, yeah.
So, I know, but there's something about that.
It's funny because the hut's running it, I think. If it was anyone else more official, it's fine. But the fact that it's basically just a gangster thing.
Okay, this is hardly an office. It's like it's a room next, like in a cantina. Okay, like, so there's that as well. And it's not the most ridiculous thing happening in this room, because there's also Tarisian idol happening in the corner. Okay, so we'll talk about that later. I expect you, because you can run into Holden first, and you get his version of the story, and he tells you where to find Dia. So it's like, if you're breaking into her quarters at that point, you're doing so with purpose, because you think you're there to find him. And he does very much make it seem like, oh yeah, she just busted out her, you know, vibroblade and gave me this scar and attacked me. She's crazy. So it's not. There's a quest in Skyrim that people talk about a lot, where there's like a woman who is on the run from people who are pursuing her, and she's hiding in I think the town's called Whiterun. And it's interesting, because people kind of talk about like her story is, I'm on the run, these people are pursuing me, and she's kind of like a political dissident or something, and she's just trying to get away and live her life. Their story is she's some kind of like heinous criminal, and they have like every reason to want her back and return her to justice. And I feel like it's the way that you play it. I feel like however you decide to do it, you can make an equal case. I don't think you're given enough information, you know what I mean, to come to a conclusion as to what the true story was. I prefer situations in games like this, where it very much is, Dia is in the right, and if you do enough digging, is very clear. Like, there's no way that Holden's not a creep, you know what I mean? And I think I like that kind of thing, because it makes the things feel more real and more true, and part of like an actual narrative, as opposed to like almost like a play thing. Like, where like the situation is Skyrim is whatever you kind of decide it is, and like it's kind of like your whim is like the game kind of bows to whatever you deign at that point.
Whichever
you
know, prefer to be the case is it's more sandboxy, whereas this is more of an actual lived in, this is the world as it is, and you'll take it or leave it. That's what you're encountering. I like that it's established very early on that's going to be the case for KOTOR, because again, I mean, it's true to an extent with Elder Scrolls as well, but there's a lot more gameplay elements to Elder Scrolls that you can engage with in terms of like the gameplay loop, you know, the physical fighting of action, etc.
That's a particular quest that's always stuck with me for the way it's handled.
But it enables that kind of gameplay more with KOTOR, because again it's more traditional RPG and it is more limited by its age, etc. It's all of the fun is by design in the story and the world and the roleplay. I'm sure people will enjoy the combat as well, but KOTOR, you know, a combat simulator is not. It's literally just freeze frame and press buttons and, you know, watch it happen. So it has to kind of squeeze all the juice it can out of the kind of the story choices and nuance here. And this is basically encouraging that. It's laying the groundwork to show, okay, if you choose to dig deeper, you will be rewarded for it. You know, you will get the nugget of truth beneath, or maybe not the exact truth, but you'll get more than you were given on face value initially if you spend the time doing that. And you know, this is a very good way of very quickly establishing that for the gamer and letting them know that, okay, this is the kind of stories you can find if you really look deep. To answer your previous point about stumbling across them because I did just break into the apartment, I did just have to turn off the part of my brain where I'm not role playing this to the point where I'm not breaking into every single room, every ring of every apartment. I went round in sequence and just made sure I didn't miss a single thing on this planet. So I just had to put that away and just thought, It's fine. I'm ignoring that part, and I have an excuse to be here totally because I didn't want to miss
You
anything.
do. You're trying to save the galaxy, yo.
The galaxy is mine. Everything the light touches belongs to Revan because I'm going to solve all these people's problems, and I'm going to loot all of their poor lockboxes as I'm doing it. Apparently,
it's being temporarily commandeered. You'll be compensated. Contact this office on this planet. Like this.
Yeah, handing out Revan cards. Like,
yeah, I owe you. But no. So did you solve that one relatively early on, or was it after Bastila joined your team?
I did Bastila last, effectively. So I think I got Bastila and basically left the planet straight away. There was no overlap there with her. Because I basically did everything pretty much in order.
Yeah, like it's fun to do some of the quests with her around because she just changes the dynamic, but it also lends more credibility to like when she like vouches for you for the jet in front of the Jedi Council. She's like, oh, I've seen him do this or that kind of thing. But the reason I ask in this particular case is because if you are just so bad at RPGs and you don't understand persuade or you didn't level it enough, she will just step in and mind trick Holden and just like, I think you're done. Man. You're gonna kind of thing. Like she just
that's very Bastila,
like,
to be fair.
Powerful
I approve.
To you at this point in the game that like she can just breeze through so much. I'm not just combat, just in general. Like it's once you unlock her, I mean, it's so much becomes
she does the equivalent of you want to go home and rethink your life. I forget what she actually says because I haven't because usually I can handle it myself, but she is capable of just being like, you're going to remove this bounty and she didn't do anything wrong and you're fine with that. And it's like, oh yeah, she didn't do anything wrong. I see the light now. I'm going to remove the bounty and bye-bye. Yeah, kind of like, she's just like, no. I mean, that's if you fail to do it yourself, she will just step in. So I like that. So Dia, Bastila's in her corner. So that is one of my favorite bounties just because of everything we've already talked about. I think that it does do a really good job of, painting kind of like that spirit of competing perspectives that you pointed out. There are many times I'm going to say that over the course of while we're looking at this game, but it's personally it's not my favorite bounty, but that's only because I really liked the creativity of Matrix. He's the Twi'lek who's on the run, and want to swap to him now. Did you do this one, Callum? Or
remind me because I'm pretty sure all of them, but.
He's in the lower city. He's in an apartment, and he testified against Davik and the exchange, like the kind of like other criminals. He was a part of the exchange, but he turned against them, like an informant for the authorities. And this is I thought you would like this a lot because
I think I might have missed this one. Then I apologize. It must have been another one. Missed. I thought I'd done it, but so
he's a Twi'lek who switch sides, against the criminals and testified against them in court. And he did all of this in like the pretty recent past. And so because he did all of that, the authorities placed him in a witness protection program, and that fell to pieces once the Sith came in and imposed quarantine and the government shut down. So it was just like I thought you would really love that story because it's such like a Lucino kind of world builders. It's like it's a world builder's plot. You know what I mean? Like the Sith come in. And it's just what happens when the Sith don't actually do evil, but just bring an end to the goings on of the planet. And so his solution is you can either kill him if you're dark side and just get the bounty, or you can help him fake his death. And he does that with a device called a permacrete detonator that you buy from one of my favorite voices in the game, Kebla Yurt, up in the upper city with like her little emporium. Fantastic voice actress. She just has like a really rich, voice, and I buy her. She just feels like an actual person, even though all she is a store. Like she's not like really a character, but I just love that
so
voice.
Much personality, like with everything she says, and the little like after each mission, the little briefing she gives you. It's so great, so well done.
Yeah. But the great thing about it, and it's fairly novel because you're helping him fake his death. You can then still claim the bounty without killing anybody. So like you can still get paid by just saying, "Hey, I got him."
You can be good and get paid.
Yeah. It's very rare. Full price.
I must have missed that one. I apologize.
In
that case, it must be counter anymore. I think that must have been the three that I missed.
You must replay Taris again. That's how that happens. It's like you just gotta play it over and over. I know it's not really your thing though. You don't like to replay games because you tend to do things the same.
Yeah, no. When it comes to RPGs, I've got that foible. I feel like the one I played, if I play it again, I end up just doing exactly the same thing pretty much. I had that one with Mass Effect.
You got to switch it up. You don't have to go dark side, but I play there's so many different ways of switching it up.
I know, and I tend to have my favorite characters as well, which doesn't help.
Also,
And then
Callan, I think it's probably worth. You should probably point out like the class that you played for this specific
Oh yeah,
playthrough.
yes. So Sentinel is what I'm aiming for. I played the Sentinel in Mass Effect as well. I tend to go for the balanced classes that give you access to a bit of everything. Just because that's my preference. Jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. It's always been my
How did you find
RPG
it?
baseline.
well,
Druid and
just
WoW,
started.
Bard and D&D, etc.
How did you find it?
Fine. I mean, to be honest, I feel like from what I was playing it, that it didn't feel like it would be too much variation in what your options are. From the start, I imagine it'll change more when we get to the lightsaber wielding stage. I imagine if you're not using blasters, it's basically just various different types of
Well, you shouldn't use blasters
durability.
anyways. They're pretty useless anyway in this game.
Yeah.
So
Ranged.
that's another one of the few aspects about this game that I wouldn't say holds up well. The blaster mechanics is just
No,
terrible.
I hate
I'm
them.
sorry.
But
Like,
it's
it's not Dark
also
Forces. I can tell you that much.
well, it's also like early on it doesn't make that much of a difference because it's more to do with like which skills you get. Those are really helpful, like when you're not just trying to beat everyone's ass. You know what I mean? Like so it's good to be able to talk your way through situations rather than just oh, I'm going to brutalize you and I win, because you can play the game that way. It's just not very interesting. But it doesn't really matter too much until you get your Jedi class. You know what I mean? Because like that's what the actual and even then, largely it doesn't affect the narrative that much, but it's just your play style, like how you like to play. Because it is really fun to play as a guardian because they have the force jump thing. And as that gets more and more advanced, that's pretty fun. Like that's the closest that it feels to something more than just your typical turn-based combat. But even there, I prefer the conversations to the actual combat. But what I was gonna say before all that is those were my favorite bounties, the ones we just talked about, Dia and Largo. But I do like the lore. I mean, sorry, I said Dia and Largo. Dia and Matrix. Largo is really lame. Largo's just like kind of in debt, and you can pay his debt, and then he's fine.
Yeah,
Or you
it's
can
like
kill him.
two-stop
You know,
job. Or you can
As you
encounter him
do.
before the bounty even comes up, as I believe, and just
Yes.
and just give him the money, and then you
Yeah.
find out later on
That
who he's
literally
connected to.
happens when
Yeah,
you
I think
talk
that
to
happened to
Zax.
me.
He lists them all, and you said,
Oh
"Well,
no,
tell me
never
about
mind. This
Largo." He's
person's
like,
paid it
"Oh,
off.
yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
that one, isn't
Never mind. That one's already taken care of, right?"
Again, just
But
little things, the different like how what order of events can have like tangible impact. I love it.
but Sylvan or Selvan, however you say her name, I can't remember right now. She's not that interesting to me, like
Not to be
personally.
confused
But
with Silvar.
Yes. Yeah.
no, not at all. Not at all. But the most interesting thing about her is that if you like look into her history, how she won her reputation was she like took out like a huge amount of the aristocracy on Alderaan, and she did that because she was paid to do so by the Organas. So
Yes, yeah, it was an
yeah,
interesting little quirk. Oh, okay,
yeah.
so their ancestors aren't quite so squeaky clean as they will one day
Yeah.
come to be. It
Yep.
was an
I
interesting
like
little
that
choice
though.
there.
I like the fact that like family history has like layers. Like it's not just everybody
Oh, I
is
really like
one.
it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
brilliant.
this was like
Like
4,000
more
years
of that.
ago, but
Actually,
yeah,
that would. I wish Star Wars did more of that. That's kind of
yeah,
something. That's actually kind of something I liked about the Plagueis novel and the fact that when they talk about the Valorums, and they even touch on that a bit in the Bane books too. So good
it's true.
stuff.
But so I like all the bounties. I usually do kill Bendak, but it's mostly because I hate seeing that in my. I wish there was an option to just delete it from your journal so that you're not
Yes, yeah,
staring.
that's always a
Like when
nuisance.
you're
Just get
okay.
a
I got a
Sharpie and
face.
cross it out.
Yeah,
Yeah, Natasha really hated that with Baldur's Gate when we went through it. She was really getting wound up by all these journal entries that we had just lingering at all the times.
I think it's the
Not
only
fun.
mission like that in the game as well. Like where like everything else gets like resolved in some way, shape, or form. Whereas that's the one that if you just choose not to do it for light side reasons, or could you at least just say, you know what, I have a thing against like just killing people for sport, or I'm not going to do this one, and they go, okay, fair enough, and then they just remove it from like your
Yeah,
inventory. Like, would that be so much to ask, kind of a thing? But
exactly.
because he doesn't do anything like worth killing him over, and it is just murder. It's just straight up like I'm going to kill him because you could justify that he's done
Consensual
it many
murder, yeah.
times to many people, and he's also consents to it because he's a like he's that kind of person. Like he's a blood sport fanatic, and he doesn't fight unless that is on the table. He doesn't. That's why he quit. because he thought, no, this is beneath me. When
The
it's
real
all
light
just
side option
training
would be
wheels.
to fight him and not kill him. Like, just give you an option to use non-lethal damage, so you just knock him out, and then kind of he goes off in disgrace, kind of thing. That would be not ideal from his perspective, obviously, but at least then you can still do the fight, beat him, become the arena champion,
That would
and
also
not
be
end up killing
acceptable.
him.
Yeah.
Just something basically. It's and at the
Yeah,
very least,
because it
not
is
leave
just
it
a
lingering
loose.
in the journal.
It is just a loose thread
Right,
if you choose to
Yeah.
ignore it. That always annoys me. So I usually do kill him, where I'm just like, he sucks, and I know this is murder, but hey, I'm Revan.
Hold your nose and just get over it.
I'm still trying to learn. I'm still trying to mend my
Oh yeah,
ways.
your
Kind
early
of a thing. Yeah.
stages. You know.
Yeah, but he called me a doo-doo head, so he has to die, kind of like whatever, ridiculous, But if we want to transition into the actual arena, then if we can go through those, he would be like the the last tier on that one. If you did decide to go for it, that is what it is. It's just in the arena as a death match. That would be how you complete that bounty. But you talked about the possibility that we wish was there, that you could just fight him and not kill him and send him off in disgrace. That is something that happens in
Quite a bit.
effect. Well, but I mean, it's something that happens to one of the other. It's not there in the vanilla game, but there's a restoration mod that restores some of the cut content that was there, which is not the same dire need that existed with the sequel. The sequel was released incomplete, and it needed basically the fans to resurrect it. And even there's some things I wish they had left in the dustbin. Things that really didn't work, like the droid planet. That might be its own mod, but that was horrific. That was terrible. That was, but the and there's a whole Jedi Master who was supposed to be an actual character who they didn't have time for, so you just find her dead, kind of a thing. So that sucked. But
Oh yeah, Luna Vash, I think is her name.
yeah, Vash.
Right?
But
It always
I think
makes me
it's
sad
long.
because the amount of work that goes into even just lining up the flow chart sequencing of events when you're designing RPG decision trees and everything. To get so far in the process just to axe them has got to be so tragic.
Yeah, well,
all
it
the
was
things
also
this
very
person
jarring
could have
because
been.
The creative process, yeah.
It was very, very jarring as well, because you could just tell this was not the story that they were trying to tell at the time. You know what I mean? It would just be like it would be like if you're going to Lord of the Rings and Gandalf. So okay, I'm gonna go meet with the master of my order, the head of my order, and Saruman, and then he goes off, and Saruman's just dead on the ground. It's like, well, he's not the real villain anyway. There's something. I mean,
hiring Christopher Lee to play a dead body for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
As
I think it was I think she was voiced by Greer Delisle, like a really quality voice.
I mean, to be fair, who wasn't?
She had
I remember
she was Act's real late stage. She had a whole thing going, even a dynamic with Scion, and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's tragic it all being cut. But yeah, speaking of Grey Delisle, she does a lot of legwork in Taris. I mean, I'm sure for the rest of the game as well.
She's half the population of Taris.
Before we axed the idea of recording live with the three of us, we run into the trio or the twins in the cantina. Two identical Grey Delisle characters wearing the same thing, basically the same person.
Yeah,
very.
I would love
and
to
then
see.
She was also the Sith officer that invites you to that
yes,
party.
exactly.
Well.
Yeah.
And she's Shalina down in the Undercity who invites you to her poor village. So she's everywhere. She's everywhere.
She's doing work.
The party just kills me. It's just let's go, and then cut the black, fade, come back. They're all in the gray. It's so.
Yeah, talk about budget cuts. Fade to black. Everyone's just catatonic, and you were just standing there, doing the old shepherd's dance thing.
I know, right? It's brilliant. Your character's standing in the exact same spot. It's oh my gosh.
I'll just steal.
That's what I was. I just remembered why I brought all that up with Lana Vash and everything else that got cut for the sequel. The reason why is because here on Taris, Deadeye Duncan, the shittiest duelist, there is a restored scene where he survives somehow, he gets off planet somehow, you disgrace him, but he's used to being disgraced. But he leaves. He gets out of Taris before Malik destroys it, and I don't understand that at all. And that might have been why they cut it.
Yeah.
But you end up fighting. It might be a random encounter, or you might find him on a specific planet. I'm not sure. But what it turns out is he's survived. He's like, oh, hey, how's it going? Do you remember me? I'm Deadeye Duncan. It's like, yeah, I remember you. And he's going around the galaxy portraying himself as the mysterious stranger now, which I kind of love. I wish that was still in the game. When I found out that was an interaction, I was like,
he could have been a stowaway in the Ebon Hawk if he was stalking you and as the source of his disgrace. He could have stowed away.
Maybe.
I don't
Maybe he
know.
explains it. Maybe he explains it, but it's cut content, so it's not officially there. But it's voiced. You know what I mean? It's like it's to the point where they brought it back and he had his voice and everything else, so it wasn't completely cobbled together. Um, but anyway, yeah. So the arena, that kind of other than it just being like, there's a point where at which you have to fight Morgan Freeman. You know, basically that's pretty much all I have to say about
Very
it.
good impression,
You
to be
know,
fair. I mean, this again. We
Yeah.
said before, combat simulator KOTOR is not, and when your arena is just the combat bit, it is not the high peak of this planet. You know, it's very much just kind of there as a side thing, and mostly to generate money. I guess is the reason you would do it outside the story.
It's a
yeah.
simple mode, but like you could, it's an interesting just bit of like just again adding that extra layer to the identity of just Taris and the way
Yeah,
that
exactly.
the criminal underground functions and all that. And the characters, like we've said, you do meet in that, definitely have their high and low points. So again, it's like one of those things. It's like very clearly was put in there as a way to progress, earn money, like you were saying, Matt. But for what it is, it's fine. It's just kind of there.
yeah.
And I like the character interactions post the fights as well. As you progress
Those are
through
good.
the rankings, I like the fact that they all react in their own little different ways. It's a nice little touch there.
Morgan Freeman quits, or he retires. Yeah. He retires from dueling. He's like, "Well, I'm done here."
And
You beat me.
Ice is like, well, I'll acknowledge you're good, but I don't have anything else to say to you. It's like, piss off.
Yeah.
Oh, and then beyond either of them, there's a Rhodian called Twitch. Like the idea of like a Rhodian who's like this master duelist is kind of funny as well. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just racist, but they're never badass, and yet he's like the master duelist here. But
He's trying to break the mold, man. He's trying to break
and
the
the other
mold.
weird thing is, I feel like he's not the most difficult. I feel like Morgan Freeman is much more difficult to beat than Twitch was. But maybe that's just me and
It's
the
just
way that the
Morgan
character
Freeman
was
to me
built.
now.
He's Morgan Freeman. He's doing Morgan Freeman. It's Tom Kane's Morgan Freeman impression. Like it's a very good impression, but it's just straight up Morgan Freeman. So he's not even trying to disguise it. I mean, but so what else is there in the cantina? Why don't we just stick in the cantina? The dumbest thing, I don't even know if it counts as a quest, but there's like you can run into like a spoiled brat who like thinks you're a waiter. And like
yes, there's no quest there. It's just a reaction to you as you talk. The whole of that cantina is nothing but aristocratic snobs. I mean, my God,
But how did you handle that?
clientele
What happened?
here. I just politely said, I'm
diffuse.
sorry, I'm not a waiter here. And I think he gave me another follow-up as another waiter then turns up to give her a drink or something. Aim a drink.
She didn't attack you?
Very mild. Didn't attack me, no.
Like if you insult her, she'll run off and she'll be like, "Daddy," and she like leaves.
Okay.
Like she runs away, and then like the next time you leave the cantina, she's hired a couple of goons to attack you.
Oh my God!
So,
that's hilarious. No, I was just polite, so I guess it pays to be polite in these situations.
Callan, did you try your hand at Pazak?
I didn't. I avoided that for the benefit of time. So see if I could getting through it. Yeah, that was. So I guess that counts as the other part I missed. But I was not pushed to try that when you guys were giving your recommendations.
You can get a Pazak deck, and there's one I think in the Jedi Enclave somewhere, but you can only find it if you're inclined to rob from your fellow Jedi, I guess, by breaking into their rooms. There's no one in this room, as far as I remember. Maybe it is your room. Maybe it's like your quarters that they give you, to be honest. But like at some point, I remember finding a Pazak deck in there, and you can buy them at different places if you wanted to try it at different stores, things like that. Yeah, no. So what else happens there? So you get invited. The main thing is like if you're playing. I think it depends.
You can also run into Nord there, right?
Well, you meet him, you rendezvous with him there before the mission to Davik. I don't think that you meet him in this cantina.
That's the other one, isn't it? That's the lower city cantina, that one.
Okay, sorry, I was thinking of a different spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they are basically identical. That's the other rest of again limitations of the game.
Textures and
everything just looks exactly the same, basically, just a different tiers.
Well, you could tell. Like, I do like the detail though, because you could tell the lower city is shabby.
Yeah, they're definitely they've put the occasional barrel and crates, and they do their best to try and separate them, of course. But the layout is the same.
I like the that with Ajur, the Hutt, who's running the arena. I like that so much of what the Hutts all say is just the same old blah 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 blah, like the same old gobbledygook. But he says his name the first time he
Mm.
introduces you. He says Ajur in the middle of that, and I just love that.
I love little flourishes like that. Yeah, I kept looking once I encountered that, and I think there's another instance in one of the Twi'lek saying as well. I kept looking for that. They didn't do that too much because obviously that's a lot of effort to kind of put into
Yeah.
this for very
I was
little
surprised
gain.
that they put that much effort
Yeah,
into it.
very
Yeah.
little gain for this. So I do not blame them at all. But I was constantly kind of looking through, trying to see, oh, are we going to get another instance of the names coming up? Because that was
And I
that
was
really
always
cool.
so upset that you can't when I was trying to max up my persuade skill as much as it's possible on Taris to try to get a better cut of the profits, and you just can't. You just cannot.
Yeah.
I don't even why is it even an option?
Yeah.
It's
He's not
just there to
persuadable,
make you
unfortunately.
fail. Yeah. But so I like that. There are two different. The main thing that you're doing, I don't think we really expressed. People who play the game will obviously know, but like what you're doing on Taris is you're searching for Bastila because it's an interesting choice, and I meant to bring this up much earlier, like toward the beginning of this actually. But it's an interesting choice that so much of this is centered around Bastila, and I don't know. Um, that's a lot of that is kind of like focused on in that video essay that I talked about, like how that's kind of like a sort of secretly genius option because what it does is it doesn't map out the fact there is not like a neon sign saying it's going to be several hours before you meet Bastila, right? And so and you just kind of like Taris just keeps going on and on and on before you finally meet her. And I think that that's part of what leads people to kind of be frustrated by the planet, where you don't feel like, okay, this isn't why I'm here. How much do I have to do before I get to her? Am I progressing at all? Like, this is taking forever. But the thing about it is like she is kind of like portrayed as the whole point of everything, which allows your character to slip into those Luke Skywalker shoes, where the story is like you're not meant to feel like you're the most important thing on screen right now. You're just goal oriented and trying your best to help. But it gives you that kind of farm boy kind of little fish in a big pond or whatever kind of a thing, like new to the city, new to the setting, and kind of like getting your feet wet, that kind of that's what most protagonist characters, especially when you are reading a book, many times most people's favorite character is not the protagonist. Like Harry Potter is not necessarily people's favorite character because Harry, in many ways, is your surrogate. He is his own character, and he does have his own. He's a well done version of this. But so much of what Harry does is ask, "What's going on? What do you mean by that? What's that? How does that work? Why is this happening?" Like so much of it is that. That's it, and then which is not the same as somebody like, say, Snape. Snape's Snape. He's a character. You know what I mean? Hagrid's a character. Now Hagrid knows things. He does, but he's very much a presence. This character, which basically doesn't really have their own name, even though you can give them one, it gets subverted, which is pretty unique because you have a past, and you have the most important past, like arguably, and for the purposes of this game. It's a great subversion by putting it all on Bastila. Like you feel like we got to find Bastila, and she also is an interesting Jedi because she is not. She's technically not fully trained, but she's experienced. So it's sort of like an Anakin position where she is on the cusp of knighthood, but she's also arguably, despite her low rank, arguably the most famous and most important Jedi of this period of time. And so she's had like this kind of like celebrity, effect and everything else. And people who don't know her, like Karth, it wasn't immediately clear to me. Like when I remember as a kid thinking, oh, Karth must know her because she was leading the mission, and realize how vast like a cooperative effort, like a Republic fleet would be. He's just part of the fleet. He doesn't know her, so he's taken aback as well once you finally do meet her.
The slightly inflated ego at that stage of her character development, or her character journey.
I like the fact that he does emphasize her importance to the broader war effort enough to kind of give you a sense of like, okay, why are we here? Why exactly are we doing this? Even if there is that initial disconnect, it keeps you engaged as you're going through the mission, even though it is so far removed from when you meet her. You always are kind of reminded, hey, this is why we're here. So I do appreciate that. It is very just kind of stereotypical. Hey, this is our main mission. Let me just remind you, sort of thing. But it works well enough. It doesn't come off as overdone, I would say.
Yeah, like you're saying there, Matt. It's a really good guiding star to kind of keep you focused and give you an excuse to kind of stumble left and right into what you're going to be stumbling into in terms of side quests. And it's well scoped as well in terms of how everything's laid out. Like I said before, you don't feel like you're okay. Let me just put aside 2 hours of my life to do something that has absolutely nothing to do with anything. I'm going to do this because I'm interested. It gives you enough where I don't feel like I'm stepping away from the Bastila mission too far to do this here. Most of it is very well wrapped into how you're going to find her with it, because you're exploring the area to try and find her in the first place. You're helping get allies to increase your chances of getting support in finding her, increasing your credits resource supply so you're better equipped to deal with it and find her. It's really good at kind of giving you the excuse to, like you said, step into that hero's role without feeling yourself like you're the most important piece on the board. I really like that.
It's a very well done like escalation of events, and again, that's something that this game just does throughout. Like, very little feels like it's completely pointless. It's like, oh, I need to do this to get resources which will help me complete this mission, which will give me this part, which will eventually help me get in with these people, which will eventually help me find Bastila. So everything pretty much everything has a direct purpose, even if it's not necessarily all connected to the main storyline, which,
Yeah,
is always something that's
it's all
worth.
about leaving room for your characters to go. You know what I mean? Like it does that very perfectly. From every perspective. From Basta's perspective, she's coming in sort of arrogant and conceited and thinking that she knows more than she does. But to be fair, she drops that pretty immediately when she's called on it, and
Oh
your
yeah, I
character's
mean
not the
literally
only one who does
immediately.
it.
Yeah, Karth calls her
Um,
out, and then immediately she's like, "Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I should be better than that." And she does
yeah,
take on board, which is the
yeah.
great gracious
Dude,
saving thing straight
yeah.
away.
From like your character's perspective, it's a little bit like a relay race where like you feel like the story is about Bastila sort of, and then once it becomes clear that she's just like, I don't want to say like she's just like one cog in like a larger machine, but even though that's a very Jedi perspective, she probably would not balk at that description, depending on the mood that she's in when you said it, or who was saying it. But it leaves room for like your character to like, I don't know, it's just in some ways. In some ways, I like this. I think people might like, like their eyebrows might raise if I say that I like it more than the films themselves, like even the classic films. Because I mean, when I'm thinking about it, Princess Leia is kind of just the damsel in distress. Now, the subversion in her case is she's very competent. You know what I mean? She's not just like a helpless person sitting in a room somewhere. But effectively, in terms of like the story, in terms of the story of that particular film, I do they need her to win the war? I don't think so. But it's just a great thing that we can help her and that she's like central to. I guess she has the connections, but I mean, why couldn't like Ben Kenobi and Luke have just gone to the rebels? You know what I mean? Like with the information she put into R2. I feel like they could have. But it's a thing you do in a story like this. The knight goes and helps the princess who's stuck in a tower somewhere. Now she helps a lot because she's Princess Leia. She's like that's what makes her work. But in terms of Bastila's case, she does literally like ultimately end up liberating herself out of the cage, kind of a thing. But you can argue that she needed the right set of circumstances for that to become a reality. But on a that's kind of surface level. On a deeper level, the narrative shifts around these characters in a way like where the baton is being passed to your character in a way that feels very natural. And that's why I like Karth on this planet as well, because Karth is very much like he's kind of like the odd man out, despite being more like experienced in these kind of matters. That's why I don't. That's why I wanted to have like a little sidebar and come to my Karth defense point, where he a lot of people just think, oh, he's got trust issues and he's annoying, and why does he start conversations he doesn't want to finish and all that. That's RPG mechanics.
To be fair, that is very much not his fault. That is the RPG minute. Like, Karth has something he would like to say. Perhaps you should speak to him. Speak to him. I'm done talking about this. Like 5 minutes later, he'll bring it up again.
If it was a book, it would take place in a different. The format would be different. You know what I mean? They wouldn't be quite that same way. But the reason why he feels the way that he does is because Karth knows. Karth knows there's something weird about the situation, but he doesn't know what, and he can't trust you or anyone. And I think that Bastila is a bit of a disappointment to him early on because of her attitude, even though she does immediately drop it. But he's the one going, why were you on the mission again? You know what I mean? Because like the Jedi specifically requested you, and that's kind of weird. And it's like right before like all the trouble started, and that's where your character can get really defensive and go, "Are you saying I had something to do with the mission?" It's like maybe I don't know. Like I mean, like it's like or like something to do with like what went wrong and everything. He's just being like super honest, really, and just inventing like his perspective. And as it goes on, he doesn't drop it because as this baton from Bastila gets passed to who is revealed to be Revan, um, he's still questioning the narrative before it becomes clear. Like he's like, why is the council giving you this mission, kind of a thing. So I really like how all of that's because you're like from in his eyes a neophyte Padawan is like, why are we doing this? Like why aren't they joining? So he's asking like the same questions. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm a Karth defender, and I feel like he can get kind of like lost in the thick of things where people don't pay equal attention to the perspectives of the characters. They're just focused on the way that the player themselves feels. So I just
I
wanted to point that out.
I really like his dynamic as well with all the other characters. We mentioned the first one with Mission before, but Bastila as well. Like every bit of kind of dialogue that comes up between the side characters you've got brought with you at different points. I think that he's a good kind of bridge between them all. Just one because of his political and military perspective, but also the banter aspect. Like he's got a good way with all of these other characters that I mean, granted I haven't seen it between others. Like I didn't have Mission and Bastila in the same party at any point, but I feel like he's a good point to kind of bounce off them all. Just enough of good humor to kind of get the banter going, but also, like you said, honest and forthright enough to kind of cause a bit of friction and have the kind of more argumentative moments kind of shine. I've got a lot of humor out of those moments when he's challenging the other characters. With
Mission and
Bastila, the one
Bastila.
with the how she lost her lightsaber as well. It must have rolled beneath the seat.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
I always
Yeah,
found
yeah,
that
yeah.
really funny.
yeah,
It's dialogue
yeah.
that's like that that really makes him like again, it feels realistic, and he comes off as like as well-meaning, even if he is just But I think his hard-headedness is reasonable for this situation. So
Mm,
again, I think when you kind of look at it from those angles, it all makes sense. You
yeah,
know.
exactly.
Mission and Bastila do have a funny interaction that I think is sort of designed with the idea that it happens on Terrace, but it's at home no matter where it happens. So if you do run around somewhere and you have the two of them in your party, it'll be triggered after a certain point. But it's a really hilarious scene. I think you'll like it a
Mm,
lot.
cool.
But
Yeah, and so like, from there we go into the lower levels and that's where we kind of get into the real meat of the gang war. Again, it's kind of one of those things like looking back on it, like it has a lot more depth than I think I gave it credit for when I was younger. Partially just because I think, a lot of some of the things that were discussed, like my understanding was a little bit limited. And obviously just from a game perspective, the amount of things I explored in that, wasn't nearly as extensive as it would later become. But I think it's interesting. It really, again, like I keep just saying over and over again, it adds to the character of the Terrace underworld in a way that makes sense. And I also like the fact that the dynamic of the Sith occupation very much fueling the added tensions between
Mm.
these two factions, that have had that history. Again, like it's very well. The presentation is what I'm saying is something I really do appreciate, and something I think that could very easily be overlooked if you're, not necessarily trying to see, each perspective as you go through.
Yeah, Matt
yeah,
mentioned earlier
um,
was of the idea of like a very world builder story. That was or
Mhm.
quest rather. That was what it felt like for me here. Obviously, you get the character driven aspect with the father and the son, really driving things. But the strength of the overall picture and how you're getting engaged with it and how it's kind of working around the world and the setup for everything with Bastila, etc. I felt that it most shined when you almost shone when you kind of looked at it through that the impact of the Sith aspect, like you said, the angle there, the fact that the world feels like it's changing as a result of everything going on with the larger war, and this kind of pressure cooker environment is getting even more pressure cooked by everything going around it. It explains why this is happening now, and it's not just you're arriving at the peak moment of story drama.
Mhm.
It's this is happening for very good reason. It's not, and it, most importantly, isn't because of you. I like all of that.
Mhm.
I think it helps it shine
And
really
yeah,
yeah.
nicely.
And I appreciate too that like the game doesn't like shy away from the fact that like these gangs are like filled with people. Like it's not like oh, one is objectively good, one is objectively bad. Like there's gradients throughout the various people that you talk to in both gangs, even if there is like a difference in how they go about things. And like in a different game, they might try and paint the sort of morality of like the various characters a bit more black and white. But I very much appreciate this, especially for the time, the fact that it doesn't shy away from the fact that no, there's like mistrust and there's seedy activities and there's not very good people on both sides, even if there is a divide in how they go about things. And that is also something it feels real, and it feels like the fact that these gangs have been around for so long in this particular setting, it makes sense that there would be that general mistrust there, even if their goals aren't necessarily aligned. So I really do appreciate that as well.
Yeah, and I like as well that they nest that within the character drama that we talked about at the start here. The fact that the nature of this gang has shifted because of the individual that's taken control of it.
Mhm.
The fact that it's the kind of traitorous
yeah.
son that has changed the tone of what was being what this gang used to be up to. It feels like yes, the environment is shaping it. Yes, the conditions of the world at the moment is changing things. But the key kind of linchpin between the two leaders and the story drama behind it is the true kind of driving force, and that will be the kind of key touchstone that you're interacting with for all of the characters you talk to, all of these different parts of the kind of good, the bad, the ugly aspects of each side of the factions. You're seeing how they're shifting and why certain people fall on certain sides of the line compared to others. I think it's just very clever, given the fact they don't have too much time to spend here on giving you like a full story kind of shaped experience. They just give you just tidbits here and there and let you paint in the gaps. I think it's really
Yeah.
well done.
I don't really have much to say about these particular characters. Although obviously in some of the comics that take place prior to this point in the timeline, you do run into some of the hidden Becks, for example, like from the perspective of like Zane Carrick, things like that. So you do see some of these people, like an earlier version of them at some point down the line. But Gadden is the name of the Gadden Thek. He's the name of the leader of the hidden Becks, and I do have to say that they do come off like the good one. You know what I mean? Because
Yes,
like
yeah,
the
that's
Black
true. Yeah, it's
Vulkars.
more the greys
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
other
I
side of
mean,
the equation for
better.
sure.
Yeah, maybe I like better in the sense of like maybe I didn't like tee that up as like realistically as it actually is. It's like yeah, there is a divide in the morality for sure, but like I guess more what I was speaking to is just the general mistrust that both of them have.
Mm. And you're seeing more of the grey in the faction as well. That's for sure.
I wasn't trying to like correct anybody or anything. There was just like kind of like a weird hiccup with the call quality, and I wasn't sure when I should speak. But anyway, I just wanted to say that like the Black Vulkars are like the piece of Taris that I wish was a little bit more defined. You know what I mean? Because like I like everything you guys are talking about, the hidden Becks, I think works because they're a shady street gang, but they're also like fairly fairly good, like they're at least like morality adjacent people, whereas like the
Mm.
Vulkars are now happily like having like a race to auction off a slave as the prize, you know what I mean? Which is something that is very much seen as like an uptick in like, yeah, we didn't used to do things this way, like not so long ago. So
Mhm.
so I wish that the Vulkars were a little bit less in that black and white mode, for my taste. But having said that, that's a hallmark of Star Wars. But that's kind of what I'm looking for, like with things like Darth Plagueis or book or games like this. I like the stories that kind of challenge that more simplistic kind of like setup and do good things with it. Having said that, I do agree with the comments you guys made about how Brejic and Gadden's kind of rivalry is fueling a lot of this. I really like Regic isn't a character that I really care about, but I like the setup there. I think there was a lot of potential, right? Because
Mm.
effectively, he's not Gadden's like literal son or like biological son, but he was like kind of like raised by him and was very much positioned to be like his successor. Um, and the story that you're told, I think from Mission, although maybe it's very possible that multiple characters say it, is that Brejic was expecting Gadden to hand the reins over to him, but then Gadden, after he went blind, because that's a fairly recent development, it was not a
Right.
natural blindness, it's from an accident. And so once that happened, Brejic thought, okay, it's my time, I'll be the leader. But Gadden didn't think he was ready. So Brejic went off and started his own gang. And effectively, that's the story of the Jedi and the Sith. You know what I mean? It's very much like, oh, you're holding me back. I have greater potential than this, greater potential than you, greater
Mm.
power than you ever had. You don't want me, fine, I'll go over there and I'll start my own gang. I like the way that they do that without making it like super hackneyed and cheesy, because you can pass through the story with that commonality never being in your face, or if you're not really thinking about it, it might not even effectively, it's not there if you're not noticing it, you know what I mean, on that level. It's a very very subtle, almost subliminal kind of a thing. Like a really tacky way to do it would be for a character to comment on it, or for Bastila to stop the action and go, this reminds me of, like the
That would be a
history of
bit
my,
too on the nose.
it'd be
Just a bit.
ridiculous. It's perfectly handled. Like and again, I use words like perfect a lot because I subjectively enjoy this game so much. Having said that, I think I'm objective enough to say I think it does these things immaculately well and better
Mm.
than like the average RPG. You know what I mean? This game was very, very, and continues to be very like lauded and respected, and people miss it and they miss games of this quality because people don't really feel like we get them anymore. You get amazing
Mm.
presentation, amazing combat, amazing game sort of gameplay and dynamics, and just the way that the tech has advanced over the years, just incredible things. But ultimately, I'm still just looking for a good story, and you
Yeah,
could still
Mm.
find those in books, and this is basically a playable book for me. So I'm always looking for those little
yeah.
gems or nuggets, you know. So yeah,
Also, shout out to Phil Lamar voicing Gaddon. I mean, just
yeah,
just
Mm.
he's just doing his Phil Lamar thing, and yeah, I mean, you can tell he's enjoying it, so I really appreciate that. I mean, he's always a great voice to hear, and he's so recognizable.
The dynamic between he and Zadra I really liked as well. Like the whole
yeah. That's fun.
yeah, that kind of back and forth there was really good.
She's like takes her job a little too seriously,
Yeah.
arguably. Um, that was the other thing I was going to say was this is not meant to be like a serious complaint. It's just a comment. For me, like the actual act of playing through the bases is like my least favorite part of Terrace. I don't mean that to come off like overly harsh or anything. It's more a comment rather than a criticism. It's just they're very sparse. There's not a lot in there. In the hidden back base, there's no one really to talk to other than Gadden himself and Ziedra, but she's just, kind of a tack on to what Gadden gives you. And he effectively is just a quest giver. There's not that much to explore, not that much to do, not that much to I can't even really think of like a key piece of equipment that you would find in like a footlocker somewhere there. So
I
it's
mean, you
just kind
can't you
of
can't even exit through most of the doors in that place. I remember distinctly remember that there you have door access, but it just won't let you through it. It's
it's
just like a
because
piece that wasn't
the
completed
reason
effectively.
it's complete. This is a this is a compliment and also a kind of a negation because the game is built around the fact that you can play light side or dark side. There are many things that are just never going to be relevant to you depending on your
Ah, I
choices.
see. So if you side with the
Yeah,
other
If you
gang,
side with
then
the Volkers, you
right,
come
of
back here and
course,
attack
yeah,
the
of
hidden
course,
mechs. Yes, so yeah, that's the reason why
completed
yeah.
they
I should
do
have
it.
realized that.
yeah.
That's
Mhm. But
obvious.
I would like, but I would like to meet more of them. You know what I mean? Like they should have a bar or a cantina
Yeah.
inside where you can meet the hidden mechs, and that
Well,
way, if you, it would be really heartbreaking then if you then went with the Black Volkers and wiped them all out. Now you're taking out people you know. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
well,
And
I
and
was
so
going to
that
say
would,
when you
yeah,
talk about the bases being empty in general, because obviously I did go through the Black Volga base because it's part of the thing. One of the reasons that feels the case for me is that you're going in for a very particular reason to try and find this very particular thing, and it
yeah,
does.
the
It's a
prototype.
long
Hmm.
stretch of
Yeah,
obviously you want to be searching for it. You don't want to walk in and have it signposted where this thing is. So that's good. I
yeah,
like the fact that you don't know where it is
it's
and
a
you go
lot.
search. But the problem is that because it's effectively linear in how you find it. All the back and forth and the checking every room and the talking to this person, talking to that person, it doesn't feel like you're really kind of exploring. You're just ticking
Yeah.
things off a list. And like, oh, have I missed a
Mhm.
room? Do I need to double back here? The layout isn't particularly intuitive, which is great sometimes, but in this particular context, kind of gets in the way and adds to the problem. On top of the fact that it's visually quite empty. There's a lot of open spaces, like you're in almost in like a multi-story car park kind of thing in the central area. But having said that, there's a few glimmers of light, like you doing interact with some NPCs that you can save, and they you rush out, or and there are people who
Yeah,
aren't on board
that's
with the
true.
leadership, etc. So it's
Yeah.
trying to do little bits and pieces. I just feel like it could have done another run through on how to kind of knit that all together, as well as from an outside game design standpoint, give you multiple routes in terms of how you can attack this, because it does feel very much like if you don't tick this off, you can't progress here. The biggest example of that, of course, being the lock that you can't get through without having gone in the opposite direction, looping around to deal with everything else that you hadn't spoken to yet. It just feels, it feels a bit more restricted than the rest of the game,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah, I'm
long
with you
on
on
top of
that
all of
one.
that.
I
It's a
agree.
lot, yeah.
It's the most linear that level ever really gets, and it really just
Mm.
doesn't quite gel the same way as you do with the other missions. Has the least amount of replayability because of it.
Mm.
Yeah.
But
I don't love playing through the sewers themselves either. I think and it might be the combination of those 2 things being basically back to back. Is like you
Yeah,
have
that's
to
true. I
you know what
think
I
the
mean? Because
atmosphere
you're
of the sewers helps a bit. I agree that in terms of the layout,
I
it's the
prefer the
same.
sewers.
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
it's the same sort of problem, just not quite as severe.
I know it sounds silly to say I prefer the sewers, but it's like
it's been said.
it's more the fact that like you're meeting Mission and Zalbar, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Whereas in the Black Vulgar base, I don't know. You already said it very well, but
Well, that's the other thing though. You
also
have
on
the
the note of
characters
the on
involved in
the
the sewer, the Undercity and the sewers level. You've got 3 different characters coming up. You're interacting with people that come at you and have different things to
yeah,
say. And there's little sort of side quest line. It's a quest area, whereas the Black
yeah,
Volkars is just a dungeon, effectively an instance. So
yeah, you
it's a lot more
effectively,
restricted.
yeah, you effectively meet Candrus like 3 times before like he
Mm.
joins you. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's true. And I like that, about it. It's
Yeah.
kind of fun. The game does sort of, I think it does benefit through progressing certain things in a certain order. There are some things that you do get shortchanged if you don't know about them already, and also even if you do, whether you're willing to do the footwork or not. I think the Rakghoul serum we can talk about last, like toward the end of all this, because that's a big example of it. But yeah, in general, I don't know. I wish. I think that that's the stretch at which people start feeling a little bit done with Taris, is like from the sewers into the Volker base, and then you meet Bastila, and she's like, "What the hell? Like, well, why are you guys so shitty at your job? And what have you been doing?" And it's like, "Oh,
As you do.
I
Excuse
don't
me?
like
Yeah.
this game." Yeah,
I will
but
say this. The part where Zalabar kind of swears his life debt to you, I think was very well done in terms of just kind of setting up the Wookiee culture, and
mhm.
obviously that paying off when I've said in the past, like one of my favorite levels in this game is Kashyyyk, and I was really like just the little bits of world building that set up in that sequence. I think it's very cinematic, and honestly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this at the time was one of the first major descriptions of the life debt as a concept outside of books,
I
and
didn't understand that much about it. I didn't understand that that's what it was between like Han and Chewie. I just
yeah.
thought they're great friends. I didn't realize he effectively, like had sworn himself to him, which I've never liked, by the way.
Mm.
Can't they just be friends? Can't they just be good friends? So I interpreted it when I was like 12 or 13. I thought, so he's like Jar Jar and Qui Gon. That's what I thought was going on.
Oh,
That's how
Don't
I.
doing
don't do that
Zalbar
to
dirty.
Zalabar, man. Yeah,
Yeah. So that's what I was just saying. There's a
yeah,
benefit to going through certain things in a certain order, and if you don't know,
yeah,
you get the wrong perspective. So that's what happened
yeah,
to me. I encountered the life debt,
yeah.
explanation at the wrong time. But
But
yeah, I do like Kashyyyk. I'm looking forward to. It's been a while since I was there, but it'll be nice to go there again for this. But what else are we talking about? Oh, I want to talk about in the sewer. How you get out of there with the Rancor and everything. Did you like try to fight the Rancor or
I feel like it glitched out for me because you find obviously the very convenient scent immediately before you see a
yes.
convenient pile of distraction to attach the scent to. I was like, okay, well here we go then, and I applied it, and then it started walking over to it. I was like, okay, great, and I'll just sort of sneak my way around then, and then it sort of just immediately stopped, turned around, and charged towards me. I was like, okay, let's get a jiffy on. Ran out the room. My party are then trying to run back to fight the boss. What are you doing? Come back! I try and select them, manually control it. It just went all over the place. I didn't get hit by them though. It was like it was trying to like just insta gib us, and I just dodged it or whatever. Ran out the room and closed the door. But it was a weird little moment. It felt like the game was trying to get you to do it one way and inspire this kind of
Wait.
quasi
So you
cutscene. But I just ran through and it was fine.
I didn't know you could do that. That's not how you're supposed to do that. So
Yes,
Interesting.
sprayed the
wait,
food. It ran
yeah.
off, and then I ran past it. Basically, that's how that worked for me.
I didn't know you could do that. Like what you're
Yeah.
supposed to. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a pacifist run, but I think it did glitch because how it's supposed to work with the advice you're actually given from like that corpse that has the pheromone on it is you're supposed to put a grenade in the pile of corpses and then put the scent, and it comes and eats the grenade
Yeah.
and it
Makes
dies.
sense.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Well, my
I don't know
Rancor
what you did,
lived.
but
I'd be very curious to see the
Yeah,
footage of that.
I'll
yeah,
put
that's
it up
weird.
on screen.
Something new every day. Like
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I
Well,
did
I'll
not
put it
know
on
that was
screen now as
possible
we're
either.
talking about it, so you can see it.
That's trippy.
It was a weird. I must have glitched. I must have balls it up somewhere. But yeah, no, I managed to get
Talon's
through.
humane to the Rancors.
Yeah, KOTOR pacifist run.
fuck that Rancor. I mean,
Yeah,
Luke didn't pacifist his way through a Rancor.
no,
I
he
don't
did
have
not.
to.
No,
No, he did
no,
not.
He
no.
choked him with a bow.
And then drop the freaking grating on his.
He's such a great Jedi. He was resorted to choking a Rancor with a bone. Yeah,
Well, I
the
mean,
ultimate Jedi moment.
he discombobulated or whatever it was.
Oh, he befuddled the
Gamorreans
Gamorreans.
as he arrived. Yeah, befuddled. That was it. Befuddled them. So
Yeah,
like,
just ignore the fact that they were doing this. Yeah, it's always great.
you
That's
But
how
like, yeah,
shocked they were.
you
That's
tried,
how shooketh
Zan.
they
You
were. Yeah,
tried.
yeah.
you learn something new every day. You can
Um,
the Rancor can live.
but the critique I have about the whole thing though is like the explanation is written in a data pad that's just called like data pad. There's a lot of information in those data pads, and you have
Right.
to kind of like comb your way through. The inventory system is actually fairly well organized because you can click your way through things,
Mm.
but the data pads really should have like a name, like, oh, severed uh, arm corpse with the Rancor information. That data pad, not as opposed to just data pad,
Yeah,
because
search
there's
for
so
every
many
single
data
one to
pads that you
find
pick
For
up.
the labeling.
it.
Yeah. So
I guess it
there's
would be a
that.
bit of a challenge to label every single one though, so I guess I
You're
kind
making a game. You can
of
figure this out. You can figure that
I
out.
guess
I
so.
promise you. I
Trying to give them
promise you.
benefit of the doubt, but yeah, you're
I
probably right.
promise you.
Yeah,
Everything else they can code making a game, they can figure that one out. But
fair enough.
The decision
yeah.
trees
No,
alone
but
of RPGs, it's mind-boggling how complex those are. They can definitely handle that much.
so we're kind of bouncing around a little bit. Just this is the way that our discussions always go. We'll come back to the Undercity and how that quest chain wraps up with the Rakghoul serum and everything else, because it's kind of two different quests that don't really have that much to do with each other. But there's a certain order that you're meant to do them in to get the most out of the story. Since we've gone through like the base and we've recovered Bastila from the races and everything else like that, or she recovered herself, whoever's version of the story you want to go with. Now it's time to go back to Upper City for now, and we'll focus on the events that lead you into the Sith base. So, what do we all think about all
I
this?
did I will say I did have a funny gameplay moment when I was, just fighting my way through. There was this one moment where Bastila was fighting Sith trooper and he was like pelting her with a blaster and it just was not working. So he just immediately switches to a knife. He like pulls it out like this, and then Bastila she just swings once and he immediately goes down. It's like, oh, that
I mean,
strategy didn't work out
it's
for.
it's ambitious taking on a
I'm just
Jedi with a
imagining
knife, isn't
from up
it?
here and thinking like, okay, my blaster's not working. Takes my knife, and then he just immediately it's like, okay, buddy.
Also, can
Maybe
I
the
just say, I
Sith
would
aren't
like to
recruiting
say,
for that.
it really is a question about like how that sort of like uh immediate gratification impulse like recedes with age, because now I'm perfectly happy to just go through the mission as you meant to, but the first thing that happened when I first got Bastila on team was like, oh great, I can take her lightsaber finally, I'm done with these swords and blasters. And there's like, no, you can't. You physically cannot hold a lightsaber
Nope.
yet because it's an
Yeah.
RPG. You can't hold it. It's her lightsaber. You know what I mean? So it's like that. I was like, oh, I still can't use a lightsaber. But then I could click on her and at least use a lightsaber. So I was like, okay, I'll
Exactly.
play as her then. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I'll be bastard for this bit.
And I kind of I still didn't really understand RPGs because I then thought, okay, I'll take Bastila and I'll go over there and do. No, she's not the player character. So when you click on somebody to dialogue with them, you reset back to your
Snap back
character.
to your
I was like,
character.
oh man, like when am I going to be a Jedi? So I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Took forever. But
I just
yeah,
before
the
we
thing
actually
that
head
I
inside the base, I had a weird little glitch moment trying to get into the base, because I didn't know how you were supposed to gain access. It doesn't kind of tell you. It just says go and get the droid, and then you'll be able to go into the base. So, okay, fine. Well, I'll go up to the door. Didn't have the droid in my party at the time, figuring it would just allow you access with the fact that you've got it in the part in the background of that stage. Didn't work. Okay, so I'll actively put him in the party. But because I was standing by the door when I did that, he appeared on the inside of the door, and wasn't it was literally on the other side, so I could still interact with the actual security door, but even if you're doing that as the droid, it doesn't let you pass. I was like, okay, what the hell's going on here? Not realizing that because he'd gone through the door, it hadn't triggered the cutscene that lets him just do it automatically, and then you can switch him back out for whoever you want again. So I was like, how the hell do I get into this base? So this was one of the moments where I
yeah,
did have to go online and check, okay, how do you
Okay.
get into the Sith base to
I have no
confirm what I've
idea.
done wrong?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I've
no
never
idea.
heard of that glitch either.
Yeah, so
Never
I
stumbled
just
on that
failed
one.
upward on that one. But yeah, got in
You're
eventually.
playing this game like no one has ever played. I'm
Yeah, I
happy.
know.
Happy for you.
You're having a wholly unique experience. This is
You're
great.
We got
not
it
supposed to
eventually
just
though.
step around the Rancor. You're not supposed to get T3M4 stuck inside before he opens his door. Like I don't know how that works, but good
Alan
job.
makes his own rules,
Well done.
apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we got in eventually,
Um,
and then obviously you're playing through the Death Star escape mission to start with because you've got the little the console.
okay,
How
so I
did
have a
you
few
interact
issues
with this?
with
Because
the
I
Sith
didn't have
base.
enough droid parts to make most of this work. I think is it intentionally restricting your options in like you've got to prioritize because you don't generally have enough parts, or did you guys go and stock up before you went in?
To do what?
Just like all the hacking overrides, like you can blow up some of the terminals and you can override the droid shields and all that stuff. I did a few of them, but not all of it.
Maybe it's just maybe it's just like by accident. Just like I typically have enough parts or computer spikes to do what I need to do, like while I'm there. I think it just comes from opening up. Maybe I ripped off more people. I robbed more people's houses, and I
Oh,
just
it
found
kind of
what I
been that
needed.
because I did that a lot as well. I don't think I missed a
Okay,
single
all right,
box. I was going into
all right.
everywhere and taking everything, but I think I probably just sold a lot of them, not realizing that I was going to use as much
I was
space.
about to
Oh
say,
yeah, I
holding
don't
that
do
vendor
that. Yeah,
for
I
credit
keep the
is probably
parts.
just
I
the thing
keep
to
the
do,
Yeah,
parts.
yeah.
fair enough.
I sell pretty much all the firearms because I don't use them, and they're worth. You know, the rifles and everything get increasingly more valuable. So I sell those off, and I buy things like computer spikes and parts and things like that.
Fair enough.
With that in mind, but yeah, no, my biggest problem with this Sith base is like the guy in charge is a Sith with a sword, and he's like, "Oh, if I complete my job, my master will present me with a lightsaber." It's like, how low level? Like, why are you the planetary Sith governor?
Yeah,
Like,
they
you don't
clearly
have a
don't
lightsaber?
prioritize Taris very much. Like, I
So
get the
odd.
impression that
No.
when they started bombing it, they weren't intending to bring these people back up to the ship. Just get rid of them.
Oh no, it was clear. I mean, Skull Kara said so. I mean, he was like, "But Lord Malak, what about all of our Sith people?" And it's like, yeah, fuck them. Like,
Oh, okay.
okay.
Yeah, this is
So
your kill the
yeah,
cat moment then. Sure.
yeah,
Are
yeah.
you questioning me,
So
sir? Oh no,
I
no.
mean, I guess
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they intentionally stationed him there because he was like acceptable losses, or just we don't need him. We just make him think like he's in charge, bomb the shit out of the place.
He'll do
But
it for a
yeah,
lightsaber.
because I wouldn't think about it aside from the fact he specifically is like, oh, my master will present me with a lightsaber, and I was like, how low level are you? I mean, like Jedi initiates get a lightsaber, right? Like, they're like
Mhm.
13 or something, right?
Yeah.
Like you're the planetary governor. But anyway, the thing that I like about this planet, and it's a shame because obviously it's about to get bombed, and so none of the good you do really lasts. But I really like the fact that you can rescue the same Duros that you help out earlier when you first
Yes.
land on the planet.
Yeah.
He's caught again. I love that. Obviously, if you don't know what you're doing, you can also kill him, even if it's by accident. So be careful. There's that
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a really nice little satisfying kind of like bookend to that. Like, oh shit, yeah, we helped each other earlier. We'll help each other again. I love the little interaction. I love that. That's my favorite part of the Sith base, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Um, and then obviously the most important thing to do is to actually lay hands on the Rakghoul serum while you're here. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth later. But yeah, so is there anything else that we want to talk about, like on Taris, like the upper city? Like there's a lot of like there's infinite, not infinite, but there's many little interactions that we haven't gone into. I just don't
Not
know how
so
much time we
much,
actually
no,
want to
because
spend
aside
on
from
it.
what we want to end with the Undercity and the Rakghoul serum, it's just Davik's estate, really, which is an
Right.
empty shell compared to everything else that comes before it. So,
Oh yeah, well,
um,
no, yeah, that's yeah. Davik's estate is effectively just like combat trying to get out of it's like the boss level, like
yeah.
and because they don't really have a boss, it's mainly just like a bunch of guys, and like a lot
Yeah.
of rooms to clear. But I do like the little touch though earlier on. We didn't talk about it. I love that when you actually acquire the Sith uniform, because when I first did that as a kid, I just used it for what it was for. I used it to go down, into the lower city, and then I gave it away to the Becks, and that was it. Actually, keep it on for a while before you do your mission parameters. People completely change how they interact with you because they think you're one of the Sith
Mhm.
soldiers on duty. I just love that detail because all those different characters, like I'm pretty sure that the Doctor, who we'll talk about, Zelka, I think like he thinks you're there to shut him down or something, kind of like
Yeah.
he kind of freaks out. You can there's like a racist guy like on the just in a corner like preaching hate, basically like, oh, the aliens are terrible, get rid of the aliens. And like if he talks to you either way, but like when you're not in uniform, he just thinks, you human, come talk to me, you be my friend and we'll preach the gospel of hate. And then if you're like wearing like the Sith uniform, he's like, the Sith, you get it right, oh, my fine Sith friends. Like he's just like a
Total fuck
terrible
up,
person.
yeah.
um
Horrible.
I think you can like freak out the Twi'lek who runs the Janice Null, who runs the droid emporium. I think she's a woo kind of. So I love that like pretty much everyone you talk to. Although now that I'm saying that, oh, the other fun thing is if you go to a cantina where like the Sith are on duty outside, they're like, "What the hell are you doing here? Like you're on duty, get out of here!" Like or I'll
Yeah.
report you or that kind of a thing. Just all those little micro interactions that are um, just flavor because none of those are important. It's
I
just
mean, and oftentimes you wouldn't even
based on what you're
encounter it if you're
wearing.
someone who only put the armor on
Yeah.
to go through the checkpoint. That's like you'd never encounter any of this.
It's
It's a
usually
lovely little extra bit of detail.
it usually is a jarring, kind of funny thing in an RPG where you can be wearing like your head's on fire with this hat, and you're just talking with somebody, and they're like, "So how are you?" Like
Yeah.
I'm well, crackle crackle kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just it's ridiculous. But in this, they
Speaking
actually
of
do
ridiculous
the.
headwear, by the way, those goddamn eye and the visors as you're
I
walking
know,
around. It's
I
like,
hate
oh
them.
my
They're
god,
very helpful.
Very,
But
very
they're so
overdone.
helpful.
Yeah.
They're so helpful. But
they're
yeah, they're
so
really
good, but they
stupid.
just look ridiculous.
Straight out of Blade Runner.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's a bunch of just random little tidbits that we're probably not going to touch on every single little thing that you can do here. But if we want to kind of bring it home with like the Undercity and the Rakghoul serum, then so the Undercity,
Very different
the major
flavor
quest,
compared to everything else.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I love the history. I love just like the society and just the way like everything is explained about people being banished and the sort of just colony that they've made as a result. I mean, again, it's all the world building. I can't praise it enough. And I like the fact that like the generational divide between the people in this colony, those who are older, who kind of, have more a direct line of like blood to the original people who were banished versus the younger people that you meet who are kind of like starry-eyed, like, oh, what's the sun like? I've had dreams
Mm.
about the it's like again, it's
yeah.
not one of those things you immediately think about, but it's tragic, but it's also like compelling in the sense of like my lord, like this entire society, because just the thought of like you don't think to yourself just off rip like, oh, like what if I never saw the sun?
Mm.
Right.
We don't
There's
live in a world like that, thankfully, but
yeah,
it's one of those
Well, not
elements.
yet, not yet.
Yeah, well, yeah.
brace
um,
yourself.
Well,
but
like, knock on wood, we never get to that, hopefully.
Yeah.
yeah,
But for real though, like, just think about that, just, like, off rip, like, if someone just came to you and said, "Hey, you're from the upper world, I've heard of stories about the sun, what is that like?"
Mm.
It's like
I'm really glad you mentioned that because that video essay that I talked about, I've always had this thought of like her name's Shalina, the one that you're
Mm.
talking
Mhm.
to down there. And I've always been I always just thought I was just overthinking the interaction, but I was just always like, "Oh, how do I answer this question?" Because they're pretty binary responses. You can either say, "Yeah,
Mm.
like the surface is a beautiful place," or you can say, "Oh, it sucks." Like I've seen better, kind of a thing. And it's just like, but that video I said that where I was talking about, they mentioned that like that specific interaction. It's like, well, what am I supposed? How am I supposed to tell this person how they're supposed to feel, kind of like
Yeah.
about this, or like it's
Mm.
this conflict of like, do you want to reinforce the myth in their head, or like at the same time, do you want to like shit on their dreams? Do you want to like, I don't know. It's just, it's an interaction that I find very memorable and just kind of like difficult, even though it doesn't really matter, arguably, like
Mhm.
in the scope of the larger narrative, it's a throwaway conversation, in fact. But
But I felt the
she,
same impression though, because it's obviously the first time I've been
yeah,
through it. I had that exact same experience. I think particularly, well, first of all, it's Grey Delisle again, so lots of heavy
yeah,
lifting there in terms of the lovely, delightful performance, but also the contrast to having it immediately follow after the confrontation beforehand. Like she's just a lovely breath of fresh air of like, oh, just generally coming and giving you the true vibe of the settlement, etc. At least that side of it.
Mhm.
Really like that. You've got the two flavors of it because it's addressing and highlighting the fact that you've got different generations, kind of the ones who are one step or maybe even two steps away from the original grievance of being thrown down here. They have memories of what came before, whereas her generation, the younger, have got that kind of ignorance is bliss aspect where they don't know what they're missing quite the same way as they could. So they've got that, they don't have the same sort of level of bitterness. But like you say, how
Yeah.
do you don't want to reinforce the idea that they feel like they should be blessed to see it. You want to tell them that no, it's fine. You should just go up there and have it. There's something you should just have as right. It shouldn't be this kind of great, amazing thing to you. But
and
Mhm.
you're going to crush the dreams. You're going to say how
yeah,
terrible
and
this is.
Just kind
yeah,
of the natural sort of just conflict that I think, I mean, just any sort of generational talk will always kind of
yeah,
have these elements regardless of the topic. Like, do you stick with brutal honesty? Do you give your opinion, or do you not so much maybe reinforce their dreams, but also just try and kind of go with it because you don't want to,
yeah,
have them kind of grind? Because it even refers to like, oh yeah, like some of the older people down here, they're just, they're bitter, they've been grind down, there's no hope in them.
yeah,
And they just see it as their lot in life, and
Mm.
they don't shy away from that.
and
It's not necessarily mutually exclusive to everyone there, but again, there's that optimism that younger generation and the sort of the
yeah,
dream they have, and like you can't help but wonder like what were the stories they were told, or like how much is
Mm.
legit versus the actual disposition with the legends.
Well, when Shalena is kind of responding to some of whatever you say to her in response, like she does kind of talk about because I think probably she says more or less the same thing no matter what you say. But
Mm.
it's one of those areas where it works really well. Because she does show like an unusual level of self-awareness for like where she does admit to like some of what she imagines the surface to be is her choice, like how she's choosing to imagine it, and how like that kind of gives her some kind of measure of hope, even though she has no expectation of ever really being there herself. And it's about to be destroyed. But so it's just this really this is somebody who wouldn't be formally educated, but it doesn't mean at all unintelligent or not intuitive or not understanding. It just goes to show like how kind of vile we are to each other with some of our like
Yeah, I
hierarchical
was
systems and everything like that, and how much
yeah,
waste there is when you keep people like that who have no reason to be tamped down just at
Mm.
the bottom for no reason. In this case, particularly unjust reason. Um, yeah, I've always wanted a little bit more from her from this game. Like I would like because you don't get she doesn't talk to you like at the end of the quest chain, and I
Mm.
always thought that was a missing element. Like
Yeah.
I would like to say goodbye to her at the end of the whole thing
mhm,
because even when you say goodbye to her when you're like because you have a game to play, you have other things to do. When
wait,
you're like when you're exiting that conversation, the way she goes, oh, okay, like she
Yeah,
doesn't want you to leave. You
come
know what I
back and
mean?
talk to
It's
me
a
again. It's been
really
lovely to talk to you.
yeah
Which is fine the first time you talk to her, but when it's the last thing you get from her after coming back, having
yeah
done everything else, is like, oh,
yeah
that feels like she should have been the bookend
yeah
to that whole experience. Particularly when
yeah.
they can just vanish because you've sent them off to the promised land because you completed the quest chain without realizing they were just all going to go immediately.
Right.
Which has
Yeah,
happened to
that's what
me.
you don't wanna do that. Yes,
Yeah, you can
yeah.
package them off and they
Yeah,
just go, and it's oh, okay. I hope you got there before the bombardment started, kind of thing. It's I like to
yeah.
choose to imagine that the this underlayer survived the bombardment and they're all
Well,
fine.
well,
there is some there is like because of the supplementary material from like the MMO, some of them did survive at least from what we got. Of course, the game is like 300 years later, so you won't
Mm,
meet any of these people again. But the implication is that the lower city it was bad, but it wasn't nearly as bad as the upper city. You know what I mean?
good.
And they're in the undercity. You know what I mean? So they're beneath the lower city. So they're
Mm,
pretty far removed from the actual bombardment, but they're still living in I guess they were always living in terrible places, but it's just I do hope that they have like a pretty thriving culture. I don't
mm,
yeah,
know how
it's nice to imagine that they led the groundwork of like the survivors that will go on
mhm,
to eventually help rebuild. Which I mean, if
yeah
anything, kind of gives that quest for your character more long-term, agency impact. It wasn't
sure
just a waste. You didn't know it at first, but you inadvertently, helped preserve the culture of the planet in a way.
mm.
yeah. Now, what do we actually think of the Promised Land stuff itself, like just
It's
as a quest?
weird.
Because
It's
it is
weird.
a bit weird. Yeah,
It's
The fact that it
it's
never gives any
strange.
explanation for any of it, like you don't actually know how accurate it is. You just send them off on this quest or this journey based on these data
Mhm.
pads you've collected, and just sort of okay, great. Is this accurate? I mean, were you literally just holding off this one fragment, and you now know it's definitely there? Like, how much is this based on story? How much is this based on fact? Like, you don't know. So you just kind of hope
Mhm.
that they've been sent off to a better place and have no real
Yeah.
confirmation
I
of
think
that.
it's
I actually
I think
kinda
it.
like that though, like, I kinda like the ambiguity, and it's like it's kinda it speaks to the for me, it's like the story implication is like, real or not, hope is something that should never be discarded, even in
Hmm.
the
I,
worst of circumstances, and
yeah,
I kinda like that, honestly.
I like that as a take. I don't know how right Rukil is or whatever, but that's the name of the village elder, right? Rukil.
Hmm.
Um,
I
I don't know how correct him and his texts are, and they themselves kind of think he's a little touched.
The
You know what I mean?
sacred
His
terrorist
fellow,
text. Sorry.
yeah, the sacred terrorist texts, yes. But I look around there. Okay, so you're in this undercity. Um, you've got there's a guy who I hate, who's like the village like
The
store, and
merchant.
he's like
Yeah.
ripping
Oh my
everybody off.
god,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let
I
me
hate
screw
him.
everyone else over. Let's build a little
I want
hierarchy
to
within
give
my
him the
hierarchy.
Rakghoul disease. I want to give him not the cure, but the disease. I want to grab him and toss him in with the infected ones. But I hate him. The
doesn't
profiteer.
uh,
But so he's there. You've got this Rakghoul plague off in the distance. You're already an underclass and like this caste-based system. Things are not going well here. So I was just interpreted as, well, at least they're on the move it can't get worse than here, right? That's how I
Mm.
choose to think of it, right? But the
Right.
thing that I was thought was a little weird was like, I think it's like in an RPG, obviously, especially of this kind, like everything you do, the world kind of revolves around you, and it's meant to be that way. But so much of this particular story feels so natural, and the bits that aren't are not with purpose. Or they aren't they're not natural with purpose. Like the decisions of the council to do what they did, and we'll talk about it another day. That's part and parcel to the whole thing. That's central to like why your character is where we are when we find them,
Mm.
right? So it's not like you just wake up one day, like in this circumstance, the Jedi Council put you there because of who you were in your prior life and everything else like that. So the bits that you could, the normal bits that you talk about, like this, with a chosen one narrative that people usually complain about, those are normally pretty like answered for within the confines of this particular story. The story has answers to any of those kinds of um, criticisms or critiques or just questions, because so much of it has been crafted with intention. But in this one, they said, "Oh yeah, you're the chosen one," meant to like show these people the way to like this promised land that may or may not exist. Like it's always felt a little bit like I
What?
wish the character could comment on it. Like, I don't care about all that. I'm just happy to see them moving on to hopefully a better pasture. And I
Mm.
don't really have that much of a stake in like this whole chosen one. I'm meant to find the path kind of a thing, I would like that to be. It would even be nice if other characters like Bastila or Karth could comment on it to just diffuse it from some, because it's weird, like it was your
Yeah.
destiny to poke around the sewers and find the path to.
It's a weird premise to start with, but also the
Yeah.
whole area kind of cuts you off from the consequences. I mean, even
Yeah.
with when you're leaving the little settlement and heading out into the sewer proper, and you've got the guy who turns up being chased by Rakghouls. Like I expected to come back later on and think, okay, I really hope that he hadn't already been bitten,
Mm,
because that could have caused problems. I expected to come back and find some kind of resolution to that. Like had he been, if I got the cure in time, it doesn't matter either way. If I hadn't, then he's transformed into the village and killed a few people, maybe Shalina kind of thing. There was just that would have been the logical choice for me, based on the fact that it does give you a decision point of are you going to let this guy in, are you going to go out and help fight to save them, etc. Um,
Handar, that's his name. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I always, yeah, I always help him. I love that. I love that. I didn't think about it to the extent you did. I never thought of it like that. I was just like, oh, I'm gonna help. I just
mm,
interpret it as okay, I helped him because
yeah,
you can
I
fail.
did
I
help
have
him.
failed to do it before.
Yeah, I did
Like
help
he
him, but
can
it's
get
just it's
killed.
just you question like, okay, is this gonna bite me in the ass somewhere? Because in a lot of RPGs it
No, I
would.
get you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no,
Yeah, yeah.
one
it's
of
a
No,
those
reasonable
things.
it's a reasonable thing to
I,
assume just based
I
on the
Mm,
setup
complete.
you had previously. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely get you. I just saying I was looking at it on a more surface level. Like, well, of course I'll try to help him because he can just die. He can just
yeah,
be killed, like in the middle of the combat, and like, um, again, it's that selfish like kind of perspective of like his wife. She's just like, oh no, Handar, and I'm just like, well, you're not gonna like say anything about the fact that I like helped you. That's how I used to think of it as a kid, because she just like leaves and
Oh
she
my.
doesn't say thank you for risking your life or anything. But like, it's also like, yeah. I mean, that would probably happen in real life. Like, you just watch like your husband get ripped to pieces by a monster. You're not that concerned with a stranger. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like I could understand that. So yeah, it's just it kind of works either way. But I'm just glad that
Yeah.
I'm glad that it's fairly easy to save him because it's happened before where I failed in the past before I knew how to play the game, and I
yeah.
was just thought, well, that sucked. I don't know why this game was so depressing because I don't know how to play.
But,
It's
but but in that
And
context as well,
perfectly
it sets
possible
it
to
up. I
save
mean,
him.
you've
Yeah.
seen, if you've explored the village thoroughly before you got to this point anyway, you've seen the fact that they've got other people caged up. You've seen the fact that they are deathly afraid of this. You're seeing the risks they have to face in this environment.
Mhm.
It just felt like
Mhm.
when it gave you the decision, okay, are you going to let this guy in? It felt like it was setting something up for that. And I feel that same
Mhm.
situation with the promised land and everything else. It feels like it gives
Right.
you, weird as it is, it gives you this solid kind of premise to work around. You've got like the story choices to make, and you can get as
I
involved or as little involved as you choose to. But once you get to the end, you're just like, oh great, we found the promised land, bye, and they just vanish. You don't
Mhm.
kind of get that
I think you're
same
right about that,
resolution,
but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
suppose.
it didn't occur to me at the time. But I think you are correct because the way that I think of it as is this is most apparent on Kashyyyk, so we'll talk about it more, and Evan will know what I'm talking about. But there are many hints and many clues and puzzles that kind of like test your character's the way that they balance pragmatism with morality,
Mm.
like, with taking a risk and trying to do the right thing as opposed to just trying to limit the most damage that will do if you kind of stick your neck out effectively. It is most on the nose on Kashyyyk, but it's like it's very on the nose in a good way. I don't mean to
Mm.
like I just mean it's inescapably
Front
clear
and
like
center,
what
yeah.
that's about, you know.
Yeah.
Um but in this case, it's very and it's all about hinting at who your character was. It's kind of like an avenue of like, okay, well, this case is very simple. Keep the gate up; it's already up. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
let him. Yes, it's a sacrifice, but the Rakghoul's not getting in and attacking anybody else. It's a sound call, as cold as it is. That's what the gatekeeper was going to do. You know
Mm.
what I mean? But you're doing the heroic thing and going out there to try to save him, and it is possible to be completely successful and save him. It's just not. And there's an argument to be had both ways. And again, there's an actual test on Kashyyyk where this is. Um, it's more front and center,
Mm.
and it's all about hinting at who you were and whether or not you still are who you are,
Mm.
like kind of a thing. Because again, a lot of this works better with the understanding that you should, regardless of who's in your party, have it in mind that they meant for Bastila to be accompanying you at some of these ways, so that she can report back on like the decisions he or she is making, as you're moving through this part of the game on Taris. Like that when she's talking to the council about you, it would make sense that she would have either a lot of good things to say or a lot of I don't know,
Yeah.
kind of. I don't know if this
Tell you
worked.
to
I don't know if this
Uh-uh.
worked.
Cut the cord.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, but that little interaction is like a miniature version of it. It's like,
Mm.
who are you? Yeah, like,
Yeah.
and what are your choices going to be? Like, how do you prioritize morality versus just
Mhm.
cold hard pragmatism,
And those are
kind of a
always the
thing.
best parts of these kind of RPGs for me, like answering the question of who you want to be and who you're striving to be in these kind of roles. I like that it gives you
Mhm.
that choice and building decision trees, and tying them as heavily to the overall story as you can to make to maximize on that. I think is one of the strengths of
Mhm.
Bioware in particular. Yeah,
Mhm.
I just felt like it could have been dialed up a bit on this section of the game, but just because there is so much rich character here. Like this is the part of Taris I felt most connected to on like
Yeah.
a character to character level. I don't particularly care about the concept very much. It isn't something that vibes with me personally. But in terms of like talking to everyone, they all have something to say. They all have a grievance. They all have a backstory. They all have a genuine problem that they really need to be solved for their own like welfare. It's not that's quite the same for the upper levels, even the lower upper levels.
All I'm gonna say is play your way through Dragon Age Origins, because there's a lot more kind of epilogue stuff with this kind of stuff and a lot more similar situations going on in certain cultures. And
I'm very
it's
much looking
got
forward to
it's got
getting
that
more
little
through that.
bit that little bit of extra follow up with characters, like after
Mm,
you've done the actual mission, that just makes it feel so much more like, oh, that's why I'm not even sure that this is like what I would call the best BioWare game. It's just my favorite. I think Dragon
mm,
Age Origins, in a holistic sense, it answers a lot of these little quibbles that I have with KOTOR. It does
mm,
it much better.
Mhm.
It just feels like that more complete kind of like full, bookended experience, because it is a little bit of a bummer just watching this place clear out. I remember when I went through all the well, can we talk about the Rakghoul serum then
yeah,
now?
yeah,
Are we
sure,
ready
yeah,
to do
Yeah.
that?
yeah. Let's
Sure,
start.
yeah.
Because this is a quest that I did first several times I played the game, that like how you can actually buy the cure that Zelka synthesizes and then like actually distribute it. I just thought, okay, quest, get him the serum, cool, done, got it. I didn't realize that you could then get it and then give it out to the people who need it, so I
Yeah.
didn't think about that. So it is a little bit of a bummer watching the place clear out, in the event that you go through all the work to do that, and then because I was trying
Which
that one time
Yeah, it did happen
where
to
I did
me.
it I
It
did
did
it out
happen
of
to me.
order.
I didn't realize they were all going to
Yeah,
just immediately leave. So I handed in the Promised Land
yeah,
quest. They all vanished. Oh,
yeah,
I
Yeah.
bet that's cut off a bunch of options for me. Particularly the woman by the gate when she was standing there.
yep,
Oh, you were
Sure,
going to
yeah.
benefit from
yep,
the cure if I gave it to you
yep,
first. Damn it.
yep,
So
Yeah.
yeah, but it doesn't give you any
yep,
warning about that. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's appropriate. But I think there's usually a few hints you can dot in to say, hey, just
yeah,
you can't come back from this moment. They're going to head
yeah,
up straight off if you tell
Right.
them, kind of thing.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that is
Yeah.
why, like, doing or doing Terrace the right way, there's a lot of legwork. Yeah, because it's like,
mm,
okay, do Zelka buy the cure, and even though I could have completed the promised land, I'm not going to do that. Hold off till last, then go all the way back down there, give out the
Mm.
cure, then come back up here. So yeah, it is very much like you don't. There's a certain answer that or order that you want to do things, but I also like the realism that you can't actually help everybody because there's a guy. I think he's is he a Republic guy who fell out of? He was in one of the escape pods and got bit by a Rakghoul. Like out in the
Yes, yeah, it
outskirts, like
acts like
Yeah, yeah.
help me, but they then transform before you can do
yeah, you
anything.
cannot
Yeah.
help him. I've
No.
I've I've held him off till like last, knowing what the interaction is, because like
Mm.
thinking, okay, this because I thought, well, I couldn't help him because I didn't have the serum, but I've been through it before with and held him off till last, like done all the rest of the planet, and then went there with the serum, and it's too late for him. So you can't
Mm.
help him no matter what. There's more than one person in the outcasts, like kind of penned up quarantine zone, and I think it might be too late for some of them as well, but you can save the majority of them. So like
Yeah.
it's I like the realism that some people they're just too far advanced and they're lost. Sorry, but you can help more than zero if you actually distribute
Very,
it out. So it's really
Mm.
nice.
very much leaning into those kind of like classic like zombie movie tropes. Like
Yeah,
Mm.
I enjoy horror, but although zombies have never really been on high on my list of horror just genres, I just don't find them that interesting. But I will say like the actual weight of the Rakghoul plague and just the Rakghouls themselves, I think like the presentation and the horror of this whole experience, I think there's a weight to it that obviously you were speaking to the realism. Obviously, it's not realistic in the sense of like zombies, but basically what
but
I was
so
saying.
real. It happens
Yeah,
every day. What are you talking about? No, it's
I guess what I'm
I
saying is
have
like
heard.
the need to do this. Like I think
Yeah,
the with the dialogue and the way that they sort of when you're talking to those people like in the cages and just the horror and the way they speak, like the desperation to get the
yeah,
cure and like the fact that I mean again you straight up see people transform and you have to fight them like that's like especially for the time like that's pretty it's heavy like that's
yeah.
heavy man like
Mm.
it's
It's just like
but they sell it and it feels realistic in the sense of like why you really do want to do this at the end of the day if you
yeah.
care which
It's
you know
just like the interaction with the gate with Hendar, because they're already penned up, and so like
yeah
the healer lady is like, I can't do anything for them. Neither can you. Sorry, it's hard. The world sucks. I don't mean it to be this way, but I don't go in there. We can't help them. And then she's not imagining that it's possible to have a cure, but it's the same thing. It's like when you're making like a militarily sound call. Like trying to do something, just trying to achieve your objective, or are you trying to like do as much good as is possible? And even then, if that's your target, is what you're talking about the likely outcome, or are you just being irresponsible and gambling that you can do it? So it's like these ethical questions and these questions about like how you're going to go about it, they're teed up in this way that just feels like they're just isolated to these quest chains, but when you look at them like all together, it is all about challenging the calls that Revan in his previous life would have made.
Mm.
And it's a deeper question when you take into account the events of the sequel, which we'll talk about eventually as well, because one of the greatest questions that Kreia ever asks, she kind of just asks it almost to herself, because she doesn't sit the exile down and say, "Here's my great question for you." In this offhanded way, after a long chat, she says, "Maybe it's possible Revan never truly fell." Because she was talking about just all these different shades of gray and just different ways of going about things. And that's sort of it's not an interesting question because Revan is Revan. It's an interesting question, full stop, for anyone from any perspective. You know what I mean? It's just so rarely dealt with that artfully. So I just really like that about it. But also, since we're on this point, can we talk about the character of the Doctor himself, Zelko 4
Oh,
up in the
great. I mean, his well-meaning nature combined with his pragmatism, I think, is a very you've seen this archetype before, but at the same time, his sort of I think it just a lot of it comes down to his character voice and the way that he's presented, like in his actual, dialogue with the character. His sort of obviously like when you discover the people that he's helping in the tanks and stuff, depending on what like path you've chosen, his reaction to that is very interesting. Speaks a lot to his character.
I
Mm.
love it.
He's one of my favorite NPCs for the entire planet for
Yeah.
sure. Partly
Yep.
because of how it's
Yeah.
packaged. Like, yes, he's involved with the Rakghoul serum overall, so he's got more of like of a relevance to a larger piece of the story in the world. But also, just like you said, you find that door, open it up, and then how that interaction goes kind of helps inform the kind of character that both you and he is. It's you feel connected to this guy very immediately just from that alone, and that's a very clever kind of snapshot way of kind of getting you to care about these people. And also because he's relatively easy to find, it kind of encourages you again to kind of look down around every corner and check every nook and cranny, just to find little beats like this.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and again, he's a good framing device for the Sith occupation in the sense of like the crackdowns and
Most
how
especially, yeah.
even with all this, he's still well-meaning enough that he's not going to let that stop him regardless. But also the frustration that a physician would naturally have when he's hamstrung like this. Again, it kind of adds to why he does the things that he does in a believable manner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and one last little bit I
Yeah.
liked about it as well was the fact that he's not actually saving these people. He's just sparing their passing. Like, I love that. The fact that I mean, it would have worked out if they had been saved as well. Like, maybe they could have been a party member you pick up, certainly someone that you may or may not have done that for, etc. That would have been another option. But the fact that he's just easing their passing and he's risking so much just for that tells you a lot about the character and again, that's
Oh, yeah.
this oppressive kind of
Yeah.
overtone for the
That's
planet.
yeah.
Those are what we call heroes, you know what I mean? And so it's
Yeah.
like, and even though, I mean, that guy almost certainly didn't make it with the bombardment and everything, you know what I mean? But
Same.
it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? It's like that's it right there. You just said he's not actually saving these people; he's easing their passing. It's still a worthwhile thing,
Mhm.
as far as we see it. You know what I mean? So it's just those little touches. Even though it's easy to kind of like bypass that, or like I could see if you're just kind of playing this just almost like on autopilot. Like I can see those little things just sort of being whatever, just like tiny little sorted details or whatever as you're going through like a larger piece. But those things are the things that make it special to me. The way that those, I mean, that interaction itself is powerful on its own, but just the fact that the game is stacked with like an accumulation of just so many little interactions like that. That's why it's special to me. That's why it's closer in nature to being something like a favorite book to me as opposed to a favorite game. Those little things. So yeah, completely on board. And also, since you mentioned the voice acting, Evan, the versatility as well, and because this character is all about morality as opposed to sheer pragmatism. I mean, pragmatism is a part and parcel to who he is, but what he's doing, what drives him, is his morality. And the voice actor Darren Norris is Godo, of course, who's a machine, who's very much about a pragmatic response to a civil war between Jedi and Sith in the sequel. So
Correct.
very 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 versatile guy, because here he's like the picture of morality.
I actually didn't know
Yeah,
that. That's
yeah.
interesting.
And in the next one, he's
Okay,
playing a
talented
droid
guy.
who's yeah.
Very impressive.
He's
Yeah.
also Cosmo from and Timmy's dad from the Fairly Odd
I've
Parents.
forgotten
So
about that.
Are
there's
you
that.
shitting me?
No,
What?
yeah.
Okay, really
Yeah.
talented guy.
I'm
Would
sure that
not
that's
have
what
guessed
paid the
that.
bills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would not have guessed that in a million years.
Mhm,
That
mhm.
show probably would have just been airing around this time this game came out too. That's
Sure.
funny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same
that's why I
period.
recognized it as a kid, because I was watching that cartoon.
It's one of the
That
things
Oh,
that's
cartoon went on way
funny about
longer
the big
after, like,
names of
after I
this.
stopped watching it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that was a pretty long running show. I didn't watch it after a
oh
certain
yeah.
point.
this particular era as well. There was a lot of overlap between games and shows and films, everything in anime or whatever. And you were watching and you recognize these names because
Well,
the big ones were
yeah.
basically just doing everything because the industry was a lot more condensed at this point. It's spread out since,
I mean,
still reasonably insular, but it's more than it was.
we're
Yeah.
calling her Grey Delisle, for example,
Yeah,
because she
but she's
was in
not that
everything, and
anymore.
but she's not Grey Delisle anymore. I think she's been married once or twice since then.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no, but yeah, it's a great. I don't know, like how we want to wrap this up. I mean, I
Quest
actually
line.
kind
Well,
of.
I think it's I mean, we could wrap up with the end. I mean, because like
I was
after
just
you
good.
finish that quest
Oh,
line,
right. Yeah, and all the other stuff is important to me. Yeah, Planet Boom, whatever.
I mean,
Alderaan, got it.
well, I mean, I
Yeah,
will say this, like
yeah.
the destruction of Taris. I mean, I will say this, like especially at the time, it was a pretty ballsy move. Like
Yeah.
that really isn't something you saw in really video games, period, let alone Star Wars video games. And the fact that again, it's like you're introducing Malik as the threat that he is, and also just kind of speaking to his character and like what he's willing to do just off rip, just to like fulfill his goals. I mean, it's good setup for like the threat that he represents without getting into the nitty gritty of his character. And also, again, very minor point, but I appreciate, as sad as it is, I do appreciate that the game never goes back on this. Like the destruction of Terrace, it's never undone
Yeah.
like completely or anything like that.
And that's what they're doing.
It
That's sort of the
sticks
point of
to
it,
it.
is that they're ripping apart like your like if you go into this not knowing
Yeah.
where it's going, they're ripping apart the only thing you've known of the experience so far. So it
That's
is,
what I'm
yeah,
saying, like, how many
yeah.
other games do that? Like, how many like, you invest hours and hours and hours into this setting, helping these people, completing these missions, and then just like that, like everything you experienced gone. All like those
Mhm.
people you talked to, they're probably dead. You know, those places you went shattered completely. It's like what other games can you really point to, especially at the time, that did anything like that? I certainly
Mhm.
can't think of many.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's deliberately putting Malik into the seat of your villain rather than just Revan's. You know, it's really trying to root you in the character you're playing, and yeah, you if you've been playing the story at all, you should at least a little bit care about these people in this world. And it's also raising the question of, was it all for naught? You know, did I do all of that for no reason? Like, how much of the doing it for the sake of doing it factors into how you value it as a character, as a person. I think
Yeah.
it raises that question. As Matt said, the whole point of Taris is raising the question of who is Revan. Or who's Revan now, anyway.
Or what is a hero? Like
Yeah, and what is a
Yeah.
hero?
is
Yeah,
it?
exactly. Just the
What
broader
is a
story.
hero
Yeah.
really? Because and also that's the other thing is like I liked how the responsibility is divided up here because he does that knowing nothing about you. As far as he's concerned, you're dead and have been for a while.
Mm.
He
Mhm.
thinks he's doing it to get rid of Bastila. You know, like she's that much of a thorn in his side or a threat to the war effort for him that he's like, can't risk it. I know she's here. Destroy it. And if he had a Death Star, it would have been, you know, he probably would have won the war and everything afterwards, you know? So it really like because the point that you were talking about is does it change the way you feel about anything you did? And I hope it doesn't. You know what I mean? I
Mm.
can't answer for anybody, but I hope not, because even though that's what happened and you can't change it, I still think it's worth helping Zelka make the Rakghoul serum. I still think it's worth helping Dia and all the rest of it. It is very much like about what is a hero kind of a thing.
Mhm.
Mm.
They might seem like basic questions, but they're powerful because even if you're reading a children's story like Harry Potter and whatever you think about, you know, that or the author or the drama or anything like that, I can't change the fact I grew up with those books and they were special to me and remain so. But
Mhm.
I've kind of been rereading a few of them like for the first time in many years. But that's the central question is like about like
Mm.
what is heroism like what's heroism all about, like, or what's heroism all about and what defines it, you know what I mean? And how much does it matter? It is
Mhm.
kind of like a question. It's not, I don't think it's objective. I think it is subjective, but it's like I think that these things do matter, or I choose to think that they matter, kind of a thing. And there are moments where Harry consciously is like asking himself of that based on something Dumbledore says. You know, I
Mm.
mean, so you could say that it's a message that's being drilled into you, but I think it's a valuable one. And
Yeah,
whether it's in a children's story or
it's
something
yeah. The
else,
point of
it's still
RPGs is finding
yeah.
out the kind of characters you want to play and the kind of stories you want to tell. I mean, these are questions we've been asking ourselves as a species for since the stories
Mm.
existed. You know,
Mhm.
it's how we teach ourselves, it's question ourselves, teach the next generation. How we shape our identities is through storytelling. You know, that's what.
I mean, Shalena said it.
Yeah,
Shalena down there, she said, she's kind of choosing to imagine the surface as this beautiful
yeah,
place and this
I
thing
was
worth striving for. Yeah.
Yeah. I was about to say it's a nice parallel too because it also kind of plays with, you know, do you after that happens, do you stay the course with keeping you know, the optimism that she embodied in your character, or are you going to let yourself become bitter like all the other, you know, exiles around her too? I mean, I don't know if that was it's debatable whether or not that was like intended to be a parallel, but I like the fact that you can look at it from that angle, and it forces you to really kind of look in the mirror with your decisions throughout the rest of the game. And also, I'm sure a lot of people probably wondered, you know, first time playing through, is like, is that going to happen to every planet I go
Sure.
to?
yeah,
You
Yeah.
well,
know,
yeah,
like
No.
exactly,
it's
yeah,
Yeah.
silly. I know that's a silly thing to ask, but like, you know, you can
No,
go
it's
for
pretty
yeah,
valid. I mean,
yeah,
because Malik has done it before. He's done it to
yeah.
yeah.
Telos, you know. So
He'll
yeah.
do it again.
And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
ask whether or not you know, it's questionable as to how intentional that specific question was, and how whether they framed the Undercity to ask that question. I think it's largely moot because when you are shaping a story within, particularly within world building like this, and you're kind of you're deliberately crafting the kind of individual beats of the story around a central theme or a central question in your mind, there's a natural confluence to how these things kind of flow together and how they do shape around the larger whole. It's interesting how much you can kind of work into that individual question in mind. You know, the idea of
Yeah. Uh,
that you're trying to ask her.
and do check out that video essay, everyone, if you haven't already, because she talks in there about like kind of the way that your brain filters like narrative structure in a way, and like
Mm.
how much is lost as if you're skipping Terrace. But the argument is obviously applies to things well beyond the scope of this game or just Terrace. You could use the same logic to it's often interesting to talk about like why a story works. You know what I mean? Like as interesting as it can be to talk about why a scene doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's it's not necessarily like consciously at the forefront of your thoughts when something is just working. It's like good editing, you're not noticing it necessarily, but if you do want to break down why it does work or like what's taken away when you mess with the strategy by skipping a part of the story, it's worth going for. I think it's a really
Mm.
quality video, so it's a good way of saying in shorter form than we did like what's valuable about Terrace. But I would also like to say I really like the small beat that exists between your character and mission when you're on the Ebon Hawk, like after you've left Terrace, because she's kind of like um conflicted about like her feelings on about everything, because she herself as an alien, which is a term that I find silly and completely subjective and relativistic in Star Wars, because
Yeah.
isn't why aren't humans aliens? Let's see
Mm.
everyone else,
Right.
But uh, uh, she's kind of conflicted about having grown up on a place like Terrace because of her status as an alien. She was sort of like it might be a bit far to say she was persecuted, because she pretty much had the run of the streets and could call her own shots and everything like that. But it was a weird culture to be raised within. And she has nothing against humans, but I think it was just like she knew there was an ugly side to
Mm.
Terrace, especially in the upper city. Um, but she still it was her home. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like it's this weird thing of it being wiped out in the way that it was. She She's better poised to get over that, better than, say, we would with our homes, for example, but at the same time, I just like that beat a lot, like, where she's not quite sure how she feels about it,
Right.
yeah,
So,
it's
well,
just it's an interaction I kind of forgot about, when I'm not playing the game, but after so many years away and returning to it, I thought it worked really well.
yeah, I mean, it's just the classic sort of trope, like, "Oh, it was rough, but it was my home
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes." So it's a realistic thing for her to really be
And
ruminating on
I
in
think
that
she's the only character that that's true for as well, which is something that maybe why I don't think about it so much, because Kandar's obviously not from there. That's just where he was working.
Mm.
Zalbar's obviously from Kashyyyk. I guess T3M4 was built there, so maybe it's his home world as well. But you
Oh,
know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
But
mean? So,
also, she's so young. I mean, she's
yeah,
14. This is a
yeah,
character who hasn't
yeah,
had the time to kind of have her full identity shaped yet by larger experiences in life. And then when that's true, our
mhm,
home and our upbringing is truly is the kind of largest
yeah.
lion's share of who we are as a person. And to see the 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 environment that shaped that just blown up right before your eyes, it's gonna leave its scars. You know.
Mhm.
to say the least, and even in Bastila sensing the loss of life, obviously kind of a parallel
Obi-Wan.
to
Yeah.
Mm.
Obi-Wan,
Mhm.
sensing Alderaan, but,
Yeah.
little on the nose, but, at
It's a
that point.
tasteful way. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Star
Not an
Wars is
issue.
always ripping itself. I mean,
Mm.
characters in Plagueis are going around talking about we're a Phantom Menace.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, and I
No, I'm
still
not
love that book
no issues.
somehow. So I
We
mean, like,
shall summon
if you can
forth
get
the
away with
attack of the
that, this is
clones.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
exactly.
I guess we should mention too, like, when, you get the Ebon Hawk. The Ebon Hawk's a great ship. Love it.
I've
I
always
could have
felt like
done
it should
without
be
it being an
black. What?
exact
What? What?
retro
What?
replica of the Millennium Falcon, but apart from that, yes, I agree.
It's a what are you talking about?
Yeah,
It's a
I mean, I don't
mainstay.
know.
It's a
Yeah,
mainstay. It's a like ships of that kind. Come on,
it's a classic.
I always thought it should be painted black though, like with a name like Eben. Like why
Mm.
is it like this kind of
Well,
like
particularly
smattering of
considering
like
it's a shady ass exchange runner that's bought and paid for it. You'd think that he'd want that thing to be less
yeah.
garishly painted.
But it's obviously it's got nothing on the Falcon. The Falcon's a much cooler just
Oh yeah.
ship. But
Oh, yeah.
I have no problem with it being cut from the same cloth. If
Right,
the
right.
Ebon does feel like home to me. I mean, I
Mm.
get upset when it gets all damaged and shit. I don't like to see that. So like, yeah, I don't like that at all.
No, it's
But
a classic.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
Also, just like there's some kind of amusing quest chains that come up in terms of like the disputed ownership of the ship as you go through the game. But ownership of the ship, did I say that correctly? Like
I
it
mean,
felt
how
like
often
I
do you
already
say
considered that actually.
it,
Yeah, ownership. Yeah,
it,
exactly. Huh.
yeah, it
ownership?
felt like I stumbled. It felt like I stuttered, and I don't think I did. I think I just called way too much attention to it. But anyway, so I guess that's Terrace, right?
Yeah, this has
Yeah.
been
I
our
mean,
general discussion on the planet of Taris and its opening intro to a much larger game that I'm very much looking forward to playing through. As I said, I stopped immediately after leaving this planet and arrived on Dantooine. I'm very excited for Dantooine in particular, obviously, given the fact that the Jedi Order is present there, but also just the whole planet game as a whole, because I've never made it off Taris before now. In previous runs, this was a game that, to my great shame, just sort of passed me by. I never got into this one, despite the fact that it's obviously the one that, if you're going to get into any Star Wars games, it should be this. So I've put it on the back burner for long enough, and I'm looking forward to enjoying it now after all this years. I hope you guys have enjoyed our thoughts on this. Let us know in the comments down below anything you have to say about the game and what it means to you. Yeah, hope you've enjoyed. I'm Callan, and I still have an outro.
This is Matt. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Evanova95, we hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Goodbye.